It's Thursday, July 23rd. Welcome back to 535. I'm Leanne Caldwell. We are here live from the Cannon Rotunda, and we are just a few members away from hitting our 100th guest to join us, 100th lawmaker guest to join us here on 535. Before we get there, we're a few members away, but you have also been here before, Congresswoman Cammack of Florida. Thank you for joining us for your second appearance on 535, or is it third?
It'll be my second.
Second, okay.
Yeah, which number am I? Now I gotta know.
So, well, we do your first number, which was, what was the Congresswoman's first number? Okay, I have a fact checker back there, and she's going to let us know, and we'll revisit.
Nice.
But Steve Womack is going to be, was that a surprise? Is going to be our 100th guest.
You could not have a better guy for number 100.
I know.
Yes.
The man who presides and loves to preside.
Yes. Yes.
But we are here to talk to you today, right now, in this moment, about a couple issues. First, I want to start with the latest on your sexual misconduct issues on the Hill. Yep. Not yours, but the things that you care about.
Well, dang.
I know. What do you want to tell us?
For the record, these are not my sexual misconduct issues, personally.
You are trying to solve the sexual misconduct problem here on Capitol Hill. You have new legislation that is out about criminal background checks, which is kind of tied to it, right?
Yes, very
so
much.
Explain this legislation to me.
So, as the chairwoman of the Republican Women's Caucus, we have been focused on addressing the creepiness factor that has emerged on Capitol Hill. We have seen instance after instance of members abusing their power and their position to proposition staff, begin relationships with staff, and in my opinion, accountability here on Capitol Hill can't begin and end with resignations. And so we need to really curb the bad behavior. Members of Congress, as well as their staff, everybody should feel safe here on Capitol Hill. And so we've been working through a number of things to address this issue. Awareness, training, accountability, and we have been working with our counterparts with the Democratic Women's Caucus to build this package. And as part of that, one of the things that I've highlighted is the lack of background checks on Capitol Hill. So people would be shocked to know that members of Congress's staff, so congressional staff, does not need a background check to work on Capitol Hill. And everyone who I tell that to, they're like, I'm sorry, wait, what? I have to have a background check if I want to work at a gas station or any job, really. If I want to volunteer at my church or for my kids' Little Leagues team. But in terms of Capitol Hill, it's not required. So what HRES 500 would do is it would require congressional staff to undergo a criminal background check. It would also require them to disclose any dual citizenships or ties to foreign nations and organizations that they've worked for that are funded by our adversaries. Now, this is critically important because as you're hiring your team, if someone has something in their background, domestic violence, theft, assault, battery, these are things that are really the warning signs that someone would be like, maybe I don't want you in my office, handling sensitive information for my constituents, working on really sensitive issues. And I do believe that Capitol Hill brings out the best and the worst of an individual. And so if you aren't running background checks, how do you know if someone is coming from a checkered past or if they have some questionable alliances and allegiances that they might be advocating for quietly?
What about background checks for the actual members, the ones who are sometimes usually perpetrating some of these sexual misconduct?
100%. So a lot of people are saying, well, heck, why aren't we running background checks for members of Congress? Constitutionally, there are very low requirements in order to serve in the People's House. So you would have to offer a constitutional amendment, of which I am open to. But beyond that, what people don't know is that members of Congress are automatically granted a top secret security clearance upon their election. And so I would argue that not every member of Congress needs to have access to our nation's top secrets. And so we are looking at legislation that would require them to undergo a background check in order to receive their clearance. Now, I don't know of members that would be opposed at this moment, but I do know that they might give pause to some of the behavior that they've exhibited in their previous lives if they knew that they had to undergo this check in order to receive access to that information.
So more like a deterrence, perhaps?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely.
There's also been a lot of chatter on Capitol Hill this week about members who have relationships with staff who aren't their own. What is your reaction to that?
Well, the crux of the issue of sexual misconduct here on Capitol Hill is that there is an incredible power dynamic imbalance. And so fundamentally wrong if you are the employing member and you're trying to solicit your own staff. But that same issue exists no matter if that staffer is in your office or another. And so as we've been talking about this, that member, if you're looking to proposition or date or get involved with another staffer on Capitol Hill, you still exhibit a tremendous amount of influence on that staffer's career, and that's just wrong. I think if members were more focused on the work that they were sent here to do by their constituents rather than trying to enhance their love life, and I should point out that most members who come to Capitol Hill are married, and we've seen a real problem with infidelity on Capitol Hill. So I would say if they were focused on the work rather than their love life, I think we would all be better off.
Yeah, so about that infidelity, it's part of the culture here, right? I mean, how much of it do you see? I'm not going to ask you to out anyone, but if you want to out someone, that would be fun too. But how much, can you explain the culture?
When I first got to Capitol Hill, I was in a meeting with Representative Ron Paul. Ron Paul, he was retiring, and his wife was with him, and she said, "Honey, there ain't nothing but hanky-panky that happens in this town after 10 p.m. And I chuckled at that, but then I quickly realized that Congress can be a bit of a frat house. And so you won't see me at these receptions. My husband and my daughter travel with me regularly up to Washington and back home. And we make this a family affair because we really see this as a tour of duty where we're all serving together. And of course, my husband being a firefighter back home, he is a public servant as well. So we take this very seriously. But I have seen my colleagues on both sides of the aisle act inappropriately, and I've seen this culture of drinking and late nights. It really does breed a system and an environment of a lot of troublemaking. And people may think like, oh, you know, people don't need to know and this doesn't happen. You're sent here by your constituents to do a job. And I think that people back home need to understand really what the culture is like up here. I would never send my daughter to work on Capitol Hill in the current state that it is. The culture of retaliation, the drinking, the late nights. It doesn't really. We're not doing our best work for the American people in this environment.
Yeah. Can you talk about the reporting process briefly? You know, during the whole Me Too movement in 2018, that was a huge topic up here. I reported on it extensively. They did make a lot of reforms in the reporting process and try to be more transparent and make it less hostile for the victims. Are there any additional changes that you have been able to pinpoint that might be necessary to further change the process?
Yeah, you know, something that was interesting as we led into this working group on sexual misconduct was I met multiple times with the Epstein victims. And this was as we were leading up into the vote to release the files. And one of the things that stood out to me was so many of the Epstein victims said that when they were going and being interviewed by the FBI, they felt like they were being interrogated, like they were the ones who had done something wrong.
Yeah.
And it made me really start digging into how people come forward and what is that reception like, whether it is that scenario or even here on Capitol Hill. So I started asking some of the staffers who would come forward saying, you know, something had happened. And I said, what was the reception like when you went to this office or to that office? And it was, one, very concerning how cold some of the response was to someone who in that moment was in crisis. But it also highlighted the fact that there's no less than half a dozen different doors that staff has to knock on just to even report that a situation has occurred. And so one of the big things that we sat down with our counterparts in the Democratic Women's Caucus saying, let's streamline this. There should be one phone number that you can call 24/7 and ask questions and get answers and understand the resources that are available to you.
Yeah.
But the other part of it was there's a shot clock. So there's 180 days that someone has to come forward and do this entire process within, all in the face of fear of retaliation, because once you report, the current culture on Capitol Hill basically blackballs somebody who has come forward and reported. So that is something that we are dramatically changing up here on Capitol Hill, because you shouldn't be on a shot clock. You shouldn't have to knock on 6 doors. You should have one phone number, one door, 24 hours a day to say, this is something that happened, I need help.
Yeah, what's the timeline to be able to figure this out?
So we're hoping to come forward in September when we return for legislative session with a package.
Great, well, come back to 535 and talk to us about it.
We will.
You also have other legislation that you seem pretty excited about on apps.
Yes.
And so let's talk a little bit about that. You think that there is a bias against consumers and producers when it comes to app stores on your phone, correct?
Yeah.
Can you explain it?
Yeah, so I would say my career on Capitol Hill is basically centered around disrupting broken systems, right? Challenging the status quo. And so we have a broken healthcare system, we're working on that. We have a broken culture and system up here on Capitol Hill, working on that. And then, of course, as it relates to big tech, we've seen tremendous challenges within the big tech community. On your phone, whether you're an Android user, which I don't know why anyone would be, but
I cannot endorse anything. I'm a journalist.
I know, but the green bubbles, man, that just drives everyone crazy. Yeah. And everyone who's in a group chat with an Android user knows exactly what I'm talking about.
Yep.
So whether you're an Android user or whether you're an iPhone user, you have 2 app stores that you can use effectively. And this is big business. This is a $1.7 trillion industry, the app store itself. It's actually more valuable than the actual hardware of phones and computers and iPads themselves. So this is big business. The iPhone, the App Store, it charges a 30% tax to developers of the apps that are on your phone. They demand that you use their merchant services. They control the data for these companies. So whether you're using like Life 360 or a Kindle or Spotify, any number of the apps that are on your phone are dictated to by Apple. They are the walled gardens that protect this entire ecosystem. But the crazy part is they say, we don't want people to have different marketplaces, right? They say, they has to come here. That's like a mall saying, no, you can't set up shop across the street. In effect, the app stores today, they control the storefront, they control the street, they control the product inside, and there's nowhere else to go. So competition in this space has been non-existent. It's effectively a duopoly that is creating a less safe environment for consumers, a more expensive one. We've just seen where courts are demanding that they purge their app store of Nudify apps that the app store themselves recommended for 4-year-olds.
Oh, wow.
We have seen this time and time again where they say, oh, but you know, this is a security risk. It's not a security risk. The App Store itself hosts 62 VPNs that have been developed by the Chinese military. It is a fallacy that the app stores can protect consumers better if they didn't have a marketplace, right? So what we want is for people to be able to sideload new marketplaces on their phone, develop new marketplaces. So parents, for example, could have a marketplace, an app store that they knew were safe apps for their children if they wanted them on those devices. I think that is the best way to move forward. It's safety, it's competition, it is all the things that we as Americans really believe in, and it's why we're tackling this big tech fight. And of course, Apple and Google hate this.
Yeah, of course.
But that's okay, because we're built for the fight.
So explain a little bit how it happens. So there's just like another place to go to purchase apps.
Yeah, so on your phone, for example, say you buy an iPhone. You technically don't own that iPhone because the apps that you put on it are controlled by Apple. And as we all know, they come preloaded with apps. And it's very interesting because developers, they'll have to submit their app to Apple for review. And in some cases, that app gets slow walked, but then Apple will come out with a direct competitor to that product kind of within a month. We've seen that. Some theft of IP. But it's interesting because If you look at Spotify, for example, or Kindle, you can't download your books on the app, you have to go to the desktop. You can't change your membership on Spotify, you have to go to the desktop. And so this is really an antitrust issue that goes back to the big duopolies and monopolies of years past. And it's only a matter of time before this gets busted up, but as a consumer, as an American, I own my device. I should be able to basically buy what I want from whatever marketplace I want. I shouldn't be forced into that. And in this case, Google and Apple control about 99% of all of the App Store marketplace, that ecosystem, which is why this is such a big concern.
And also it seems like for the app makers too.
100%.
Yeah, my husband has like toiled with some apps and made a couple apps. But, Apple takes a lot of money.
They sure do. 30% on your gross profits. 30% on your gross profits is the toll that these app makers have to pay, and so they absolutely have a financial interest in keeping this bill from having its day in committee and on the House floor. But we feel very confident that at the end of the day, the little guy will prevail. And
it is a bipartisan bill, right?
100% bipartisan, because we really do see this as a anti-competitive issue that is hurting consumers, it's hurting kids. Like I said, Apple's own engineers have come forward saying that it is a proving ground for groomers to effectively target children.
Oh, wow.
Because they have no vetting process for these apps, these Nudify, these sex chat apps. And of course, from the security standpoint, it's been debunked over and over. Even the FBI this year came out and said that Apple had a Chinese app problem and it has yet to be addressed.
You all have finished voting until the end of August. People are headed home, headed to Codell's, headed to campaign, maybe even taking a vacation, which I hope everyone needs to do. But the Republicans had a very successful week this week.
Yes, we did.
What happened? Like, why all of a sudden were you able to pass pretty much everything you needed to in 1 week?
So, it's been funny because Capitol Hill has been a little bit shocked that Republicans, with very little fanfare, we got an incredible amount of work done.
After weeks and weeks and weeks of not being able to move anything on the floor.
Yes. I mean, and one big ticket item is we have passed the Stop Insider Trading Act for members of Congress and their families. And that's been an issue that's been talked about for decades, right? That is one of the number one things that I hear about from constituents back home. It's why I don't trade individual corporate stocks, because I think we have an unfair advantage in terms of...
People are really riled up about this issue.
Yeah, people get really worked up, but people also get upset that nothing ever happens. So this week, we not only passed the National Defense Authorization Act, which had a tremendous amount of good in it, from pay increases for our service members to addressing cognitive warfare, of which our adversaries are actively engaged with us on. It was tremendous in terms of what we were able to accomplish. And I think it's because people are ready to show that they've done the work rather than just talk about it. In Washington, you've got show horses and you got work horses, and I think the work horses prevailed this week because people are a little bit tired of the climb to the top of Mount Clickmore. You know, I think they're a little bit exhausted.
Mount Clickmore.
Yes,
oh my gosh,
you can steal
that's
that
amazing.
one. You can steal that one.
That's so good. Okay, we are almost out of time,
Yes.
but I have a fun question for you. What is your favorite karaoke song?
Baby Got Back.
Oh my God, that is so good, but it's also really hard.
No, I have got that one down.
Good for you.
Yes.
I've tried it before.
I will happily do it with you.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay, in September, come back. Maybe not on camera, but off camera, we'll karaoke Baby Got Back.
Deal.
Oh my gosh, that's
Deal.
amazing.
Deal. Sir Mix-a-Lot would be proud.
Yeah. or really embarrassed in my case. Congressman Cammack, the 50th member who has joined 535. Thank you for coming back for your second time. Really appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thanks. And we will be right back after a short break.
You're watching 535, and we'll be right back.
When your child gets sick, time is everything. Getting treatment sooner means more options and a real chance at getting better. Thankfully, almost every new treatment for cancer is available here. And because of strong American leadership, we get these new medicines first. But that can change fast. In other countries, many are told to wait or go without. If Washington copies other countries' policies, we'll have to wait too. It's time to tell Washington, keep America in the lead.
A simple blood test can detect Alzheimer's years before symptoms appear. Congress can connect Americans to early, accurate dementia diagnosis by supporting the bipartisan Alzheimer's Screening and Prevention Act, allowing Medicare to cover blood-based Alzheimer's screening. Congress has acted to cover mammograms and other life-saving screenings. Now it can redefine Alzheimer's care, unlocking early detection and access to FDA-approved treatments when they work best. Congress, it's up to you. Paid for by the Alzheimer's Association.
We are Lions International, one association of global volunteers, one foundation for humanitarian grants, shaping the future, one act of kindness at a time. We are on a mission to improve health and well-being, to strengthen communities, to serve a world in need. We are Lions International.
To learn more, visit lionsclubs.org.
There are moments that shape an organization's future. A policy shift, a crisis or investigation, a market shock. When that moment hits, the clock starts. Markets move in minutes. Regulators, employees, and customers respond instantly. Narrative helps leaders respond with pace, engage stakeholders with precision, and position brands with perspective. So when challenges emerge, you can navigate complexity and lead with clarity before the narrative is defined for you.
Congresswoman, we only have a couple minutes,
Okay.
which is perfect for our 5:35 1 minute.
Should I be afraid?
Who's the smartest member of Congress?
So I'm really putting you on the spot here.
You know, don't tell anybody this.
I'm too much of a politician to answer that question.
This is crazy.
What's the best committee? I do like them all.
On you, baby.
That was good. That was good.
Welcome back to 535. I'm Brody Mullins here with Mark Hayden, the head of FinSecca. Tell us what FinSecca is.
So FinSecca is the combination of 9 different organizations that we've merged together. We represent individual members. We have nearly 15,000 members spread across the country, and it really centers on this notion of financial advice. We picked the name FinSecca. It's inspired by this notion of financial security for all. So we want to bring people together, advocate in Washington for policies that will help the American people become more financially secure.
And your organization has been growing over the years through a series of mergers. What types of other industries are you pulling together?
So it really does, it's different segments of the financial advice profession. You know, we call it the financial security profession, but there are different go-to-market strategies, some independent distribution or affiliated distribution. And really what we've done is bring together a whole bunch of different organizations that represented different segments of that overall population of people who provide financial advice to families and businesses.
So I know crypto is not what you guys do, but I want to ask about crypto because there's so much going on in crypto right now. The Senate's trying to figure out if they have enough votes for a bill as the Senate's trying to leave for the year. There is an issue though that involves you slightly with crypto being allowed to or not allowed to be part of investment strategies for retirees. Can you tell us about that issue?
Yeah, the Trump administration is trying to open up options within a 401k. I mean, most people, most of their savings are in a traditional 401k. So what the Trump administration has said is we want to open up access to alternative investments, things like crypto, things like private equity and other kinds of investments, which have been more historically, particularly on the private equity side, reserved for people at the upper end of the market. So they're trying to open it up. They're also encouraging people to include more lifetime income products in their 401k. So it definitely has a relevance to our sector, but it's not a core issue that we're lobbying on.
And given it's not a core issue, is it something that your industry wants, or you just not care at all about?
We would be what I would consider sort of more of a lagging indicator of those kinds of investments. So we're not tip of the spear, and we're not actively lobbying it, but we're certainly following it closely.
Okay. Well, let's talk about what is important to you guys. What are your most important issues right now?
Look, I think there are a bunch of individual bills like the Clarity for Compensation Act and the Plan Act, which raises awareness on long-term care. I think the biggest issues, though, that impact our members and impact the American people are issues, frankly, that we're not talking about. We have a $39 trillion debt and growing. Social Security goes insolvent in the fourth quarter of 2032. These are massive issues. Social Security, if nothing is done, will be a 20+% across the board pay cut for existing retirees. Huge, huge issue. And Congress, given the issues of the day and the political environment, just simply not getting to them. But they're coming. They're coming soon. It'll be a prominent issue in the 28 presidential election. And then, we haven't dealt with Social Security insolvency since the 80s. Wow. So these are big issues that are on the minds of the American people, are going to have to be dealt with in Congress.
So I feel like Social Security is a big issue, but it's not that hard to fix if both parties come together. Do you agree?
Well, I think the math is relatively simple. Yeah. You can twist the dials on retirement age or the funding mechanism, but our big thing is what we need to do is encourage more people to save privately. We know that the defined benefit plans have gone away in this country largely. And so what we're really looking at is how can we encourage more people to save earlier, save in the right ways. It's one of the reasons why we're so excited about the Trump accounts. This provision to actually put money aside for every child born of an American citizen and passed as part of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. Those are really exciting developments that haven't gotten a lot of exposure and notoriety. There's been some great White House events and some, people like Michael Dell and others that have made investments into the Trump accounts. But that's just the beginning. We just need to get more people saving early, and then having a financial plan to make that savings last.
And tell us a little bit more about the Trump accounts. Obviously created 1 year ago. It's $1,000 that the government puts into an account, or that the parents can put into an account?
So for every child born of a United States citizen, gets $1,000 from the Treasury. Then there have been a bunch of there's some states, there are a bunch of companies, some billionaires, like I said, like Michael Dell and others, that are also increasing the investment. If you think about this, Brody, so companies are allowed to put money in, parents are allowed to put money in. If you think about, let's just say they got the initial $1,000 from the Treasury Department, and then they got another $2,500 investment from somebody. If they leave that in the account and they just get the average returns from the S&P, if they leave it in the account when they're 65, they'll have over $1 million in savings.
That's $1,000 to $1 million.
It's $3,500 to well over $1 million if they leave it and take advantage of compound interest. And of course, our position on that is the way that you keep that money in the account, the way you take advantage of that savings vehicle, is if you have a financial plan. So you know where the money is coming and where it's going, and you actually put that aside. So again, we have a huge retirement savings issue compounded by Social Security insolvency. And we need to unleash and unlock the private sector to get more people to be in a better financial position to absorb some of the issues like we saw in 9/11, we saw with the financial collapse, we saw in COVID. What ends up happening when there's this black swan event, what happens is the government's got to spend trillions and trillions of dollars. So we know we need more private sector solutions, and that's really what we're all about.
Mark Hayden, President and CEO of FEMA, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
I'm Brody Mullins. We'll be back on 535 in a few minutes.
You're watching 535, and we'll be right back.
When your child gets sick, time is everything. Getting treatment sooner means more options and a real chance at getting better. Thankfully, almost every new treatment for cancer is available here. And because of strong American leadership, we get these new medicines first. But that can change fast. In other countries, many are told to wait or go without. If Washington copies other countries' policies, we'll have to wait too. It's time to tell Washington, keep America in the lead.
in Afghanistan. The IED actually penetrated the vehicle between my legs, but it was a miracle that we all survived in the vehicle.
When I began the process to separate from the military, it was during COVID. And with the issues back home, we just knew we got to come back home and take care of the family. So we had to go stay at our mom's house. And there was already 3 people living there and 5 of us, or 8 people. How many bedroom? Like a 2-bedroom. It was like a 2-bedroom house. We were desperate.
So then when we transitioned to Texas, it was very much so like, what are we going to do now?
When I came home, I needed a new roof due to a storm, and I was about to lose homeowners insurance as well. I applied for Operation Homefront Critical Financial Assistance Program. They've really been a blessing.
I'm in the Permanent Homes for Veterans program. They built a house for me, and it's amazing.
We got the call, this is your house, and the kids and I took off just to go sit in the driveway and cry. It's life-changing. It took us from a hopeless situation, and now we're homeowners. We have a savings account.
The best way to describe Operation Homefront is that it's like a family because they're always there for you.
I would say you guys are angels behind closed doors.
Operation Homefront has impacted my family in a way that's probably going to be passed down through my family's history. It's definitely going to be a story that's going to be told for generations.
I enlisted as a medic to be there to help my patients, and after an injury, I found myself as a patient. I experienced post-traumatic seizures. Depression is a big one that comes along with it, PTSD. So I pursued my PhD in neuroscience and regenerative medicine. The coalition has helped fund my academic pursuits. They genuinely care about helping the vet in whatever way that they can. Through supporting the coalition, you're supporting some of the veterans that have the biggest needs.
Visit saluteheroes.org to learn more.
It's 5:35 inside the Cannon Rotunda. I'm Scott McFarland, pleased to be joined by George Whitesides, first-term Democrat, 27th Congressional District of California, including the northern Los Angeles suburbs. You have a distinctive background among your colleagues, a NASA Chief of Staff, an aeronautics expert, dare I say. Tell me who's coming to you and what they're asking about with this niche that you fill as an expert in this field.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're trying to bring a sense that science matters and facts matter, and whether that's in wildfires or costs or space, we have to have, an honest take of what's happening in our world in order to address the problems that we face.
You're on the Science Committee. You're on House Armed Services as well. Let me start off with Armed Services. The week has concluded here in the U.S. House with some pretty big votes on Iran, on war powers, on the authorization bill. What were your takeaways from those votes and that debate?
Well, I think, the war powers vote just today shows that the support for this misguided war is collapsing, even in the Republican caucus. It's certainly collapsed with the American people. And as a member of the Armed Services Committee, I'm obviously very focused on the troops who are in theater, who may not be getting the protection that they need. We're very concerned about the decreased number of interceptors, which is what we saw in Jordan, and just how this is affecting real Americans as the gas prices continue to go up.
Let's talk about prices. Let's go to electricity prices and electricity stability, infrastructure, security. You have legislation about the electric grid. Walk us through what's in there.
Right, so today we are introducing a great bill lowering energy prices through grid modernization. And what this is about is this funny word called reconductoring. And it's a complicated word that is a very simple idea, which is just people's energy prices are very high. And we need to get them lower by getting more power into the grid so that the prices can come down. And what this does...
Supply and demand.
Supply and demand, basic supply and demand. And so what this does is that it encourages utilities to put new wires on existing lines, which means that we can get more power to where we need to put it much more quickly than putting on new transmission lines. So that's going to lower the cost of people's power, and it's going to reduce wildfire risk because the lines will be modern lines that don't sag as much bouncing into trees or brush and starting fires, which is a big issue in my district.
So much of this world is state-run. Utilities, electrical outlets, these very local governments. How does the federal government intervene to try to leverage this?
Well, this bill focuses on two areas. One, it provides essentially tax credits so that utilities are encouraged to do this. It also enables permitting to be streamlined so that we can move faster. It is crazy how long it takes to build some of these new transmission lines, sometimes 20 years. I'm a co-founder of the Build America Caucus, and we're very focused on getting America building again, whether that's housing or electricity or whatever it is. We need to build faster to give people the things that they need, a roof over their head, power that's affordable, medicine that's affordable. Those are the things that we're really focused on.
What kind of pushback do you get when you try to build new or more electric lines in communities? Because you are necessarily going to have a little bit of resistance to there being anything different that's not there already.
That's exactly right. And that's why this bill about reconductoring is so important, because it actually doesn't require the building of new systems. We can just put lines on top. People won't notice the difference, but they will notice the difference in their power bills, because as more power gets from where it's created to where it needs to go, people's prices can come down, and that is what we're really focused on.
So the tax credit goes for replacing or improving current lines, not for building either new underground or new above ground
Right,
systems.
Exactly right. And there's this sort of wonky term called advanced conductors. And so basically a power line, not to get nerdy on you, is a metal line with something in it that allows it to sort of stay up. And frankly, we've been using the same technology that Edison, like the guy Edison, not the company Edison, did when he first did it. Modern conductors enable more power to flow through the line, and they also use composite materials or Kevlar inside so that you don't have as much thermal sag, and you reduce that chance of ignition for wildfires.
Also today you've announced new AI legislation, and since we've already touched on the hot button issues of reconductoring and advanced conductoring, let's go talk about AI and get the scientific world really juiced here.
Well, we are working on a lot of different AI bills right now because it's so important and people care about it so much. And I'll highlight two bills. So today's bill enables AI to become more secure so that people have a lower risk of getting attacked and having bad actors in AI use their technologies for
foreign actors too.
Foreign actors too. But I also want to highlight another area, which is kids' safety. And we've just also introduced a bill called the Total Act. And I don't know if you're a parent, but one of the issues as a parent is controlling screen time is a huge issue because, the kids have the iPad and they have the phone and they have the desktop and then maybe even the gaming console. And this bill focuses NIST, which is the standards agency that we've got, to say we need to have a common standard so parents can take control again. Because I talk to parents all over my district and they are just at their wits' end. It kind of feels like you're an unpaid, underappreciated IT administrator rather than a parent these days.
You mentioned NIST, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is the Commerce Department's agency for creating measurements that are uniform, which is what science is, right? Uniform measurements. How can they build a measurement, or what kind of measurement are you looking for here?
Well, what we're trying to do is essentially establish a standard, a standard that will be shared across technology companies and platforms because people are just at their wits' end. And look, we're not going to solve all problems with screen time with this bill, but what we can do is keep chipping away at this because what I see with my kids is that they're just on the screens all the time, and so many parents they don't know what to do. So if we have a common standard, then parents can sort of start to take control back of their kids' childhoods.
Would there be some connection between the Commerce Department, maybe the health agencies on this too?
Yes, absolutely. And we need to be studying this much more. I don't know if you followed the latest science, but I'll give you an anecdote. So we were just talking to an amazing guy who's a California Teacher of the Year, and he no longer gives homework anymore, right? Because you just can't, because kids will use the AI platforms. He had a kid in his classroom who was having trouble. He was an English teacher, and the kid came in and he forced the kid to do an essay in class, and he said, for real, Mr. Casey, this is the first time I've written anything in 3 years. So we are in a crisis. We actually see kids' test performance going down right now, and I think as a nation, we need to get a hold of this problem, understand through studies like you're saying the impact that this is having on our kids, because it's not at all clear that having more technology is helping kids learn.
Easy to build a bridge in a bipartisan way on those dynamics because that's a nonpartisan issue.
It is, and we've gotten great bipartisan support around these issues. Folks on both sides of the aisle are very concerned about these kids' safety issues, and I think it's a good foundation upon which we can build, potentially additional work in AI.
Your district is still recovering from the latest round of wildfires, the devastating fires some years back, and the threat that's there now. What in the world can Congress do about that, or is that something that may be, not in the bandwidth of Congress this year?
Well, look, the most important thing we can do is pass the Fix Our Forests Act. This is a bill that has passed the House. It's in the Senate. It could go, through the Senate anytime. I think they may try to attach it to various bills. This is a bill that is crucial for establishing greater safety from wildfires for all the communities in the United States. And, we've had these terrible incidents of smoke the last few days here in Washington, D.C. The whole country is at risk from the catastrophic risk of wildfire. So if we can pass Fix Our Forests, that will be a huge down payment on Congress at a federal level, helping communities do fuel reductions around their areas to make us safer. Now, I'm also a big fan of technology, as you know, so I think ultimately we need to make sure that we're putting in place a sensing layer so we can find fires faster, and we have legislation on that in the National Defense Authorization Act that passed yesterday, which is very exciting. And then I think we need to use technology to get to those fires very quickly, because out in California or the American West, if you don't get to that fire very quickly, within like the first 5 minutes on a bad day, then you lose control of it. So we need to be able to use things like drones and other things. And also we need to do all the other stuff supporting wildfire fighters with good pay, because they don't get paid enough. They have terrible benefits. We need to be able to support the people doing the work as well as the technology.
Just a moment left. In the California 27th, what's a distinctive place? Something people should see, go to, eat at, visit if they're there?
Well, one of my favorite places is Vasquez Rocks. It's an amazing geological outcrop. It's sort of a great logo. It's my logo, actually, and it's a beautiful place where they filmed a lot of wonderful movies and even a Star Trek episode.
The 27th Congressional District, the northern suburbs of Los Angeles, on the House Science, Space Technology, and the House Armed Services Committee. George Whitesides, thank you for your time, sir. Steve Womack, Arkansas, about the federal deficits coming up. I'm Scott McFarland, and this is 535.
You're watching 535. We'll be right back.
A simple blood test can detect Alzheimer's years before symptoms appear. Congress can connect Americans to early, accurate dementia diagnosis by supporting the bipartisan Alzheimer's Screening and Prevention Act, allowing Medicare to cover blood-based Alzheimer's screening. Congress has acted to cover mammograms and other life-saving screenings. Now it can redefine Alzheimer's care, unlocking early detection and access to FDA-approved treatments when they work best. Congress, it's up to you. Paid for by the Alzheimer's Association.
When your child gets sick, time is everything. Getting treatment sooner means more options and a real chance at getting better. Thankfully, almost every new treatment for cancer is available here. And because of strong American leadership, we get these new medicines first. But that can change fast. In other countries, many are told to wait or go without. If Washington copies other countries' policies, we'll have to wait too. It's time to tell Washington, keep America in the lead.
I work hard. My dad worked hard. That's where I got it from. What I take home is my future and my kids' future. And if I can invest in companies, they're going to reflect my principles, what I believe in. So why would those companies hire outside people to tell them to embrace principles I don't believe in? Congress must protect the financial future of Americans from the foreign-owned duopoly that answers to no one.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Rome. I've played many roles on TV and film, but today I want to speak to you as myself about a cause that's very dear to my heart. The Cancer Prevention and Treatment Fund provides free help to those who have cancer and those who wish to prevent it. They've also worked tirelessly on banning cancer-causing chemicals in our homes and neighborhoods. I want to thank them as a mom for protecting our families. Please donate today at the Cancer Prevention and Treatment Fund at stopcancerfund.com.
I enlisted as a medic to be there to help my patients, and after an injury, I found myself as a patient. I experienced post-traumatic seizures. Depression is a big one that comes along with it, PTSD. So I pursued my PhD in neuroscience and regenerative medicine. The coalition has helped fund my academic pursuits. They genuinely care about helping the vet in whatever way that they can. Through supporting the coalition, you're supporting some of the veterans that have the biggest needs.
Visit saluteheroes.org to learn more.
Welcome back to 535. I'm Paul Kane of Notice. I am very, very happy to have with me Steve Womack of Arkansas. He's the chair of the Appropriations Subcommittee. THUD, I think the insiders like to call it.
Some people call it THUD.
THUD. Yeah, I like that better. Transportation, Housing, Urban Development. And he is a regular presider over the House chamber whenever there's a really, really intense vote. Also, I don't know if your staff prepped you for this, but we folks have been here at 535 doing this only for a couple months, and you are the 100th member of Congress to appear on 535.
Do I win a prize?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. All right. So I got to go through math here, and writers, we're never good at math. As of July this month, publicly held debt was nearly $31.8 trillion, roughly equal to the size of the country's economy. Publicly held debt is going to grow more in 10 years, reaching 123% of the economy. You have been introducing a bipartisan bill for several years now, basically to try to get debt to GDP ratios into something that is manageable. Tell me about that bill and the overall importance of the issue long term to the health of the economy.
Yeah. Well, Paul, first of all, great question and a great subject, because I believe, against the backdrop of all of the other major issues facing our country, clearly the fiscal condition of our country, to me, is, if not the most important, certainly among the most important, because the path we're on right now is just not sustainable. And it's going to begin to manifest here in just a few years, and I'll come back to that if we need to.
Sure.
But I've been working on this for a long time, and I had the great honor and privilege of when Speaker Ryan asked me to be part of the Joint Select Committee back in 2018 on budget process reform, because we believe that part of the issue that we face right now regarding deficit and debt comes all the way back to the way we do budgets, or maybe the way we don't do budgets.
Yeah.
And he asked me to co-chair with the late Nita Lowey a budget process reform panel of 16 members, bipartisan, bicameral. And we spent 9 months on this subject, so I kind of consider myself somewhat of a subject matter expert on some of these issues, and I believe that it all begins with how we do our budgeting. But that said, you're right, the debt held by the public, $32 trillion, but the overall debt is roughly over $40 trillion.
How much was it when you first got here in January?
I don't even want to think about it anymore because it has just grown exponentially over time, and there are a lot of reasons for that. But the fact is, we just spend more money than we bring in, and the kind of the knee-jerk reaction to that for a lot of people is, well, if you're a conservative, is we'll just cut spending. Well, 2/3 of that spending is grandma's Social Security check and Medicare and those, and net interest on the debt. And then if you're if you're not necessarily interested in cutting anything, then the answer is, well, let's raise taxes. Well, that becomes problematic. It is a complex issue, and it has to be addressed, and I've always believed it should be addressed sooner than later, because in 2032, this thing is going to rear its ugly head. And that's when the Social Security trustees say that there won't be enough money to pay the benefits, and we're looking at a plus 20% cut in those benefits if we don't do anything. So I'm a big advocate for, let's grab this thing by the horns and let's tackle it to the ground and see what we can do about fixing it.
it really is a fast approaching issue because, 25 years ago I was at roll call and I'd hear people talking about the Social Security Trust Fund, and it just seems so far off.
So far away, yeah.
And you probably in January 2011 are like, oh man, 25 years, oh, that's nothing. But, we're getting there fast. There's always a political willpower problem with these issues. And you summed it up. Republicans traditionally do not want to, they don't want to raise taxes, don't want to cut military spending. As we've seen in recent months, the military is still quite active. Democrats, it's a mantra for them: do not cut entitlements, Social Security, Medicare. When does the political willpower manifest itself to try and do something? Jody Arrington, the House Budget Committee chair, a few years ago tried to start a commission, and then sort of at the last minute, labor unions, yelled at Democrats, don't work with him on this, and some of the anti-tax groups yelled at some of the Republicans that don't vote with him on this. Where would you're trying to move this bill? How do you get people to focus on it?
Boy, if I had the answer to that question, I'd be over in the Capitol right now leading that charge. I think it's going to have to be forced on Congress. And 2032 may be that time frame, because when you are faced with having to fix a problem that's on your doorstep, I mean, how do you go back and tell people who are living primarily on Social Security that they're going to have to take a 20+% cut in their benefit? Well, you're not going to say that. You're going to fix it somehow. But I'd rather us do it sooner than later. So, my bill that I've introduced so far, which is a reflection of my work back in 2018, is purposed in putting us on a 2-year budget cycle, giving Congress the ability and a little more runway with which to do budgets and appropriations. There are a few more nuances to that bill that help us achieve an overall benefit to the country, like 3% deficit to GDP is one of our targets in this bill. And if it's not enshrined in the Constitution, i.e. if you don't have a balanced budget amendment with teeth in it that force Congress, who've taken an oath to the Constitution, to do their constitutional duty, then there's always an off-ramp. Yeah. And you can punt this issue past the next milestone. It could be the next election. It could be after, to the next Congress. It could be past a certain holiday. There are all kinds of ways Congress can say, we know we have a problem, but let's deal with that later. Now, here's the sad truth. This is the inconvenient truth on this subject, and that is, of all the options we have to fix the problem, whether it's revenues or whether it's program realignments, age of eligibility, one of those, thresholds by which you pay into the FICA program, all those options, you know what you're going to have to do? All of them. Every single option is going to have to be on the table when you're $40 trillion in debt, and when you're going to run a deficit this year, just 1 year, of nearly $2 trillion. All options have to be on the table when you're in that sort of circumstance, because none of those by themselves are going to even move the needle on fixing the problem.
You're a member of the Appropriations Committee, funding federal agencies. How much does it irk you that there are still people out there, and still some serving in these buildings, who kind of think, well, if we just cut foreign aid, we can get to a balanced budget?
Okay, well, I'll give you a data point. The entire discretionary budget of the U.S. government, and you know what I'm talking about. When I say discretionary, these are things that the appropriators do on an annual basis. This is a congressional mandate. Every Congress fund the government at the discretionary level, about 1.7 trillion.
Yeah.
Our deficit is going to be 2 trillion. Now, even in Arkansas math, you could cut all that out and still have a deficit of 300, 400, 500, I mean, serious money, okay? So, and remember, roughly half of the entire discretionary budget is what? It's men and women in uniform. Yeah. It's our military. It's our intelligence services. It's our nuclear weapons. It's defense of the homeland and our provide for the common defense mandate in the Constitution. So those are, you can't do that. You're not going to be able to fix America's fiscal problem by just dealing with what the appropriators deal with. It's going to have to come in other forms.
How annoying was it to appropriators, the way Elon Musk and Doge sort of, a year and a half ago, they had some thoughts and ideas that, you know, the government spends too much money, we need to rein this in. But they didn't really do the sort of stuff you were talking about. They thought that they could close down a few agencies here or there and lay off some federal workers, and all of a sudden they'd be saving money. And so far, I don't think they've really saved more than a couple bucks.
Well, the realization was a lot less than the anticipation.
Yeah.
I mean, they went in with great hopes, and remember, I remember clearly they got rid of a whole lot of people at the NNSA. Now, that's the people that supervise our nuclear program, and found out, oh, wait a minute, we can't do that. We got to bring these people back. So you got to be careful in how you do that. Look, the problem. Now, should we be focused on, you know, slimming government and, you know, get it on a good diet of slim fast and trim it down and right size it? Of course we should, but that alone is not going to do much to move the needle on a $2 trillion deficit and a $40 trillion debt. Yeah. It's going to require a much more aggressive and a much more comprehensive approach, because you're going to have to restructure some programs that people rely on. You're going to have to look at revenues, and I mean, the entire cornucopia of options on the table are going to have to be considered.
Who are some of the Democrats, either House or Senate, who are open to this and who think similarly to you and the few others that are really taking the issue seriously?
Well, let me answer the question this way. If you ask my friends on the other side of the aisle if we have a problem, the vast majority of them will agree that there is a problem. Mm-hmm. The challenge we have is trying to figure out and discern what are the right solutions to the problem. But there are a number of people on the other side of the aisle that agree with me that we have to do something. And I mean, I go all the way back to the time I was budget chair, and my ranking member, John Yarmouth, he was on the Joint Select Committee with me. He was one of the people that voted for the programs that now are showing up in my bill in Congress right now. So there's one example. Now, he's retired back to Kentucky, but that's one example of how we can bring people to the table and then have a full-throated discussion about, of all these options in front of us, how do we tweak those options to get the very best result so that we can look back on it someday and say that was a transformational decision made back then that saved a future generation from financial oblivion. That's what our challenge is.
You would like to set up a commission. Now, do you want it to be something where it's a sort of special select committee similar to what you served on in 2018 with actual members of Congress duly elected by their own constituents? Or do you want it to be something more like the Base Closure and Realignment Commission of 35 years ago, where they would have independent experts present it to Congress and they just had the up or down vote in terms of how to do something politically painful?
Paul, I'm not married to a specific makeup. I do think you have to engage the best and brightest minds that we have available to us. Some of those could be in Congress and should be in Congress, mm-hmm. and some of those could be and should be and clearly are out in the private sector who can mm-hmm. look at this issue holistically without the political blinders on that keep them from pursuing an option perhaps that might not be so much in political favor. Then I will say this, if you take a commission like that, regardless of the makeup, And if they come back similar to Bowles Simpson and says, Congress, here's what you can do to get this problem somewhat under control or put you on a path to get it under control, then it will be up to the American people to pressure Congress to once and for all take the tough votes that fix the problem. But if you're just going to make this a hyperbolic discussion about, well, Republicans want to cut Social Security or Medicare, which is not the case, or Democrats just want to tax the rich, then you're not going to get anywhere. It's going to have to be a sober discussion among smart people who understand what it's going to take to make these programs function without causing more undue harm to the, first of all, to the economy, but also to the balance sheet of the U.S. government.
All right. 3 years ago, in my prior job at the Washington Post, we were sitting down in your office, and you were really grappling with the state of this institution. You even said that you were, at the time, considering whether or not you should retire. Your quote was, "Life is too short to sit in misery." How do you feel now, 3 years later, about the institution and sort of where it is?
So, you know, Paul, you've been around here. There are 3 elevators right off the floor that I go back to the Rayburn building. I always take the one with the padded walls. It's gotten a bit worse. And life is
I
still...
laugh because it could, otherwise I'd cry.
Life is still too short. Mm-hmm. But the work is so critically important. You know, I've got a 13-year-old grandson that I see a lot. And when I look at Caden, I think about what is it we are leaving his generation. I chair the board at West Point, and when I sit down with cadets, particularly those that are about to be commissioned lieutenants and go out and lead our men and women in uniform in the crucible of ground combat, and I'm thinking to them, what are we doing to leave them a country that they can be proud to serve? And so that's what motivates me. And yes, every 2 years I think about, you know, maybe it's time to pass this baton to someone else, give them an opportunity to fix it. But I'm now in a position on my Committee on Appropriations to start to make a bit of a difference. I thought I had a little bit more horsepower as a budget chair, but the way we do budgets up here, that didn't seem to pan out so much. And we got left at the altar on the Joint Select Committee because we were 3 votes short on the Democrat side of instituting those reforms. So that's why I want to bring this bill back one more time and give it an opportunity to find success and put America on a better glide path.
One of the things that you are an institution man, you've said that publicly, privately many times. You have overseen some really important moments in the House chamber. There was a chaotic January 1st vote where Democrats thought that they were going to get the vote on a hurricane relief bill. They were screaming and yelling, and you were in the chair. Then you had to oversee the platform debate at the RNC in 2016 when there was a whole fight about what should be in the platform because no one quite knew where Donald Trump was on the issues. Were you in the chair for 16 hours last summer, or the July of 2025? So what's the craziest of these moments, or the most meaningful?
Well, yes, I was in the chair for 16 hours, and my bladder reminded me of that many times. I did get a couple of breaks. Of all the things that I've been able to do, of course, I'm probably I guess I'm the answer to a Jeopardy question now, though I'm not asking the producers there to consider this, but I'm the only member of the Congress of the United States in history to preside over the vacating of the chair.
Oh, yeah.
It's only happened one time, and I happened to be in the chair that day when Kevin McCarthy had to vacate the chair. There have been a lot of great moments that I will always remember, including the 2016 convention in Cleveland. But it's just a great honor to stand in the dais and look out over my colleagues to see Moses across the way bearing down to know in God we trust is right above my head, and the enormous pressure that comes with presiding over the one half of the legislative body of the greatest country the world has ever known. That is an awesome responsibility and is an awesome feeling to feel that. And I'm pleased to be able to do it, and I get a chance to do that a lot. So, and now my friends tell me, Womack, when we see you in the chair, we know something's going on, and we come in alert.
Every speaker knows, like this. He's the one who can oversee this whole thing. If it gets unruly, he'll know how to do it. But yes, so you're the 100th guest. Have you been in the chair more hours than any member currently?
I think I did.
Currently?
I think I hit that record on one day. There probably have been some others that have logged some time. I don't log as much time anymore because things go pretty well, and but it's a great honor. I have a lot of people say to me that they love it when I'm in the chair. I guess another memorable moment for me was when we came back from COVID and we had no more proxy voting, and the first time we went to 2-minute votes. We hadn't done that in
I quoted you on that. You said 2 minutes is 2 minutes.
And I said 2 minutes is 2 minutes, and I got widespread applause on both sides of the chamber.
Yeah.
And that was a memorable. We had 20 of those that day, back to back to back.
Yeah.
And that was a special moment for me. But I tell you what it was. It was an indication that the people in the chamber were ready to move Congress back into normalcy at that time, and that gave me great comfort.
All right. Well, in honor of all your time wielding the gavel and being the 100th guest, we will present you. It is a golden gavel. That's kind of a Senate tradition, but I like it. Here you go, sir.
Oh, Paul, you're so kind. Thank you very much.
All right, you want to give it?
Are we finished?
Yeah,
we're going to. So I can hit this gavel and say I yield back the balance of my time.
All right. When we return, protecting the maritime industry and the Jones Act. We'll be right back to 535.
You're watching 535, and we'll be right back.
Oh, and
I work hard. My dad worked hard. That's where I got it from. What I take home is my future and my kids' future. And if I can invest in companies, they're going to reflect my principles, what I believe in. So why would those companies hire outside people to tell them to embrace principles I don't believe in? Congress must protect the financial future of Americans from the foreign-owned duopoly that answers to no one.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Rome. I've played many roles on TV and film, but today I want to speak to you as myself about a cause that's very dear to my heart. The Cancer Prevention and Treatment Fund provides free help to those who have cancer and those who wish to prevent it. They've also worked tirelessly on banning cancer-causing chemicals in our homes and neighborhoods. I want to thank them as a mom for protecting our families. Please donate today at the Cancer Prevention and Treatment Fund at stopcancerfund.com.
He is what your show is called, The Decider.
It's Washington's hottest new show, and it has the Beltway buzzing.
Americans, they know BS when they see BS.
Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Brody Mullins.
Is this era ending and is a new era beginning?
And veteran strategist Lisa Camuso Miller.
Have you ever had to tell a client no?
Talk to the biggest and most influential players.
We wanted $1 million. He said done.
Rewriting the rules of influence.
Business is going to be on the ballot.
Congress needs to do their job.
They become lapdogs rather than watchdogs.
The people who never talk.
That's such a good question.
Talk to them.
It was kind of fun, actually.
It's Washington's only show by and for insiders.
Welcome to The Deciders.
Watch weekly right here on 535.
You're watching 535.
This is 535.
You're watching 535.
You're watching 535.
You're watching 535.
We're live from the Capitol, and 535 starts right now.
When your child gets sick, time is everything. Getting treatment sooner means more options and a real chance at getting better. Thankfully, almost every new treatment for cancer is available here. And because of strong American leadership, we get these new medicines first. But that can change fast. In other countries, many are told to wait or go without. If Washington copies other countries' policies, we'll have to wait too. It's time to tell Washington, keep America in the lead.
On 535, I'm Scott McFarland. Really pleased to be joined by Salud Carbajal. His 10th year here in Congress from the 24th Congressional District of California, which includes Ventura County. Sits on the House Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, has served on the House Armed Services Committee, and for the purpose of this first question, it's critical you're the ranking member of the Coast Guard and Maritime Subcommittee. Explain what the Jones Act is. You have made some criticisms of how the Trump administration's handled the Jones Act. You've also tried to bolster the Jones Act. So first of all, what is that thing?
Well, the Jones Act was put in place around World War II time period. And it basically was put in place for a number of reasons. But it really focused on the essential need to make sure that we continue to ensure our national security and our economic well-being when it comes to shipbuilding and being able to have a commercial ship fleet that we need sometimes during wartime. But what it does is ensures that cargo that is transported between American ports is done on American-built, American-flagged, and American-crewed ships.
You've sent out some inquiries about the Jones Act, indicating there may be some waiving of it that's been done in the last couple of years. What's the downside of having it waived when the administration sees that as a need?
Well, it's a security risk. Certainly, if there's a real need, that's one thing. But what it does is it allows our American ships, commercial fleet, to not have opportunities and to really open it up to foreign ships to come in and do the work and the transportation that our American ships can do. There's no need to do that. We have enough ships to be able to provide transport of all our goods within the United States waters.
Is this distinctively parochial to your district? I mean, you obviously have some water access there, but do you have businesses there that may be distinctively threatened by foreign makers or foreign industries?
Well, it could be, but near my district, I have the Port of Hueneme, I have the Port of Long Beach, the Port of Los Angeles, and so it's really important that American ships are the ones that deliver American cargo between ports. And during a wartime situation, for our national security, we need to have access to those ships as well. So the Jones Act ensures that we are incentivizing shipbuilding in the United States. We're supporting our mariners, we're supporting our local economy, and supporting our national security.
We had heard so much 4 or 5 years ago about the supply chain disruptions through the ports in your district. How is that faring now? Is that something that's a low-grade concern for you, or is it something that could flash up again?
I think it's always a concern. We learned a lot during the pandemic, and I think that it's still a significant issue to be concerned about. But I think that as long as we have, again, the Jones Act, and that we're looking at protecting our interests and making sure that we shore up gaps that exist when it comes to supply chains, I think we'll be fine.
Let's talk about the House Armed Services Committee and the work done this week among the 535 on the war in Iran. House passed the National Defense Authorization Act, as it must do. Looked a little different this time because it didn't have that very robust bipartisan coalition it typically has. Then we saw the War Powers Authorization pass with, again, a bit of a coalition that's different. Republicans joining all the Democrats. What should people in your district make of all this?
Well, I think that's consistent with at least my district and my constituents. They are pretty much against this war. And I think that they see, while maybe not as more robust as we would like in a bipartisan fashion, it's still bipartisan. And passing a Wars Act sends a message to this president that the American people don't want this illegal war, and that we should tread lightly and work on diplomacy and not send our troops into harm's way if we can avoid it.
Pull the curtain back for us a little bit. You get constituent calls, you measure your constituent calls here in Washington and home in California. How much of a proportion of those calls is about the war or about things like war powers?
Well, I would say timing is everything. And right now, since this is an issue in the front burner, we are getting substantial number of calls on this particular issue. I would say it's a good 25%.
Yeah. It just speaks to the moment. And of course, you've got teams that are trained in taking those calls. The 535 all have constituent service directors and people who take calls. And those calls sometimes are about legislation. They're about what you're doing here. I want to talk about surface transportation. And the Transportation and Infrastructure Committee, it is always the big mission to reauthorize or authorize surface transportation. What threads on the latest bill are you pulling as things that are distinctively important?
Well, I think when you consider the surface transportation reauthorization is always very bipartisan. I think we voted it out of committee 62-2, if I remember the vote correctly. I think it provides for many investments in our roads infrastructure, bridges, transit. It does a lot to really ensure that we continue to stay up to speed with modernizing our infrastructure throughout the country. And it crosses everything. Airports, transit, transportation in so many different ways.
What part of this gets dicey politically? Are there certain components of those bills, despite the overwhelming committee vote, that can be, I suppose, trapdoors on the House or Senate floor?
Well, the two issues for California that were concerning and still are concerning, despite the overwhelming bipartisan passage of the surface transportation reauthorization from committee, is the whole issue of trying to provide a fee assessment on electric vehicles. It sort of disincentivizes people from continuing to purchase electric vehicles.
Which is the goal, it seems.
Exactly, and so that's of concern. There's a fee that was put in place for electric vehicles. The other one is when you consider rail transit. I believe that there was some language that provided that no more funding for high-speed rail would be provided unless a study was done. And what that does is we know what studies do. Studies can be good, but they delay the investments that are needed now. And so for California, there's quite concern about the rail issue as it was orchestrated in this bill, as well as the fees for electric vehicles.
Let's talk about the waters of the United States. They call it WOTUS among the 535. Catchy acronym. There's a component of that legislation that's distinctively important to the 24th District and to your subcommittee. Where's that going?
Well, it's moving forward. And what's important in terms of word up for my district is I have a number of smaller ports, and this is going to provide significant amount of funding to continue the dredging that makes those ports viable and productive.
So you need to dredge the ports to make commercial access
absolutely
available.
And in two of those ports, we have Coast Guard detachments in Morro Bay as well as Santa Barbara. So it's important for the extraordinary work that our coasties do in the region, get their ships in and out, their cutters. So it's really important that not only we do it for our service members that are serving there, but for the commercial fishing industry and other associated benefits.
All right, I want to get into the issues of immigration. You have a dynamic backstory. You emigrated to the United States from Mexico at a young age. 5 years old? 6 years old? 5 years old. And you're listening to this heated political rhetoric about birthright citizenship and about U.S. immigration policy. How does all that land with you?
Well, what we need to do when it comes to our immigration system, which is broken, is really work in a bipartisan way to reform it. When I came to this country, we were able to do it through the proper channels. My father put in our applications. I got a green card initially to come to this country. But back then, the system worked somewhat well. It's broken now. So many people want to come to this country. They don't want to wait 30 years. The heritage of our country is that of immigrants. You might have been here 5 or 6 or 7 generations, but most Americans can trace their heritage back to an immigrant that came to this country.
What part of it's broken to you? What component of it can be fixed?
Well, I think a number of things could be fixed. One is we need to fix and move forward a component that would address the Dream and Promise Act, that would allow dreamers to have a pathway, legal pathway forward to citizenship. It's the only country they've known. We need to do something like the Farm Workforce Modernization Act. Both of these pieces of legislation are bipartisan, that would provide a legalization path for our farm workers and their families, provide stable labor for our farms. That's another one. And the last one, which is more in the comprehensive area and also bipartisan, the Dignity Act. That's a bill that would provide a meaningful path for those individuals that are already here for a certain amount of years, obviously get a background check, pay a fee, to be able to get a legalization Dignity Act permit to be able to stay in this country and come out of the shadows and continue contributing to our economy that we so desperately need in terms of this labor force.
Your California colleagues to your north, Central Valley, those to your east, have talked about their concerns about farm worker availability. Are we going to have enough people to produce food and to keep food prices reasonably low? Where does that stand now? What's the status of the farm worker?
I think
in
regrettably, due to the illegal tariffs that the courts have deemed illegal, due to all these terror raids on communities across the country and on the Central Coast, and especially California, we've seen a drop in the labor force that our farmers depend on. And certainly...
is it a dramatic reduction?
I think so. Yeah. Enough that a number of our farms are having their products, their commodities go fallow and not being harvested the way they need to be harvested. So the number one industry in my district is agriculture. So I'm in close contact with many of our farmers and farm workers to understand the plight that they all experience and have been enduring. And I can tell you that the tariffs and all these raids have really provided an unfortunate and unprecedented negative environment for our farmers and to be able to harvest the food that all our American communities depend on. Food is national security. Agriculture is national security.
Got a couple minutes left. I want to ask you about the 24th Congressional District. I want you to paint a picture of what it is. First of all, what are you growing there?
Strawberries, wine grapes. We all enjoy great wine. Broccoli, lettuce, flowers, cut flowers, avocados, and a little bit of citrus. Very little bit of dairy as well.
You had me at great wine. Tell me what the unique spot to go visit, eat, or spend time in is in your district.
Well, there are so many good eateries. To be able to select one is like selecting one child over another.
It's a dangerous game, man. Yeah.
But we are a coastal community. We have mountains, we have lakes, we have the beach. It's stunning where I live. And we have extraordinary people that live there. And just so many amazing treasures to visit, from natural environmental things to see and enjoy, to just so many wonderful restaurants. It is an extraordinary place. It's paradise on earth.
6 terms now. You getting used to the commute?
It'll be 6 terms. It's 5 terms so far.
I'm speaking optimistically, apparently, or
thank you,
looking forward. Yeah.
Thank you. I always like to not put the cart in front of the horse. You know?
It's got to be a grind, though.
It is a grind. You know, when I first started, I kind of got used to it by now, but it is a tough thing to get used to. Every week, I come from California to Washington for a session, and at the end of the week, I go back. And the first few years were pretty grueling. Actually, initially provided me some anxiety of I'm going to be in this plane for 5 to 6 hours each way every week, and it was I was quite anxious at first, but I'm used to it now. It's no different than driving a car for 2 hours somewhere.
In service of your country.
That's right.
Salud Carbajal, the 24th Congressional District. Thank you for your time as we conclude your 5th term here in Washington.
Thank you.
Still to come on 535, another ambitious infrastructure project, speaking of the West Coast, this time in Oregon. We'll explain next. I'm Scott McFarland, and you're watching 535.
You're watching 535, and we'll be right back.
Here on Capitol Hill, the 535 are in charge, the members of Congress. But in a democracy, in the people's house, you need to be heard as well. So if you have questions or comments or ideas, submit them to us at 535.news, because here with us, the floor is yours.
A simple blood test can detect Alzheimer's years before symptoms appear. Congress can connect Americans to early, accurate dementia diagnosis by supporting the bipartisan Alzheimer's Screening and Prevention Act, allowing Medicare to cover blood-based Alzheimer's screening. Congress has acted to cover mammograms and other life-saving screenings. Now it can redefine Alzheimer's care, unlocking early detection and access to FDA-approved treatments when they work best. Congress, it's up to you. Paid for by the Alzheimer's Association.
We are Lions International, one association of global volunteers, one foundation for humanitarian grants, shaping the future, one act of kindness at a time. We are on a mission to improve health and well-being, to strengthen communities, to serve a world in need. We are Lions International.
To learn more, visit lionsclubs.org.
When your child gets sick, time is everything. Getting treatment sooner means more options and a real chance at getting better. Thankfully, almost every new treatment for cancer is available here. And because of strong American leadership, we get these new medicines first. But that can change fast. In other countries, many are told to wait or go without. If Washington copies other countries' policies, we'll have to wait too. It's time to tell Washington, keep America in the lead.
There are moments that shape an organization's future. A policy shift, a crisis or investigation, a market shock. When that moment hits, the clock starts. Markets move in minutes. Regulators, employees, and customers respond instantly. Narrative helps leaders respond with pace, engage stakeholders with precision, and position brands with perspective. So when challenges emerge, you can navigate complexity and lead with clarity before the narrative is defined for you.
Welcome back to 535. I'm Mariana Sotomayor, Capitol Hill correspondent of Puck News. I am now joined by Congresswoman Val Hoyle, Democrat from Oregon, and we're going to talk a lot about her lovely coast and what it could mean for the future of trade in the country and also internationally. So thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so let's get right into it. So you have a plan for Coos Bay. Tell me a little bit about it. And for those of us like myself who haven't been there, why is it so important to the state?
So first of all, I represent 2/3 of the Oregon coast, so 250 miles of coast, the central and south coast, bordering California, at the bottom, sure. And then, Lincoln County at the top. And Coos Bay in the 70s was the third busiest port in the world, not the country, in the world when we were shipping lumber. My background is manufacturing, distribution, and international trade. That was what my career was in. And so I know that Oregon is an export-dependent state, that we need to invest in our import-export infrastructure. We are very, very lucky in that the Biden administration and now the Trump administration have prioritized this port. It would be the first ship-to-rail port in the world. And what we would do is get ships onto rail that could go all the way to the Midwest. This would mean jobs. After NAFTA, since NAFTA, we have lost 70,000 jobs just in Oregon in international trade. We are a trade-dependent state. So during the last downturn in 2009, international trade was the only sector of our economy that stayed strong. So this would be 6,000 permanent jobs. We're talking 2,200 to 2,400 construction jobs in a place where, again, we have to invest in our supply chain infrastructure. We saw during COVID, that's what we need. And quite frankly, Prince Rupert Sound, Canada has put $3 trillion into their port up in Canada. So we have American companies shipping things into Canada, coming down, paying those tariffs.
Right.
We really should be owning our supply chain infrastructure, getting trucks off the road, putting people to work. And this is what I'm working on. It is our #1 project, and I'm so grateful to have strong bipartisan support.
So let's talk about the ship to rail, because you mentioned that this would be the only one in the country, right?
Yes.
So where are you in the process of actually making this happen? Because one is the dream, the goal, and selling it and letting people know the huge impacts that this could have.
So I'll tell you, we had in the 90s, our timber industry crashed. There's a whole lot of reasons, spotted owl, but it is our Rust Belt. And so in my district alone, we lost almost over 13,000 jobs in the timber industry, in the mills, good jobs.
Right.
So people on the South Coast have been promised a just transition to other jobs. And there have been many, many projects, and none of them have come through. And people have said to me, we have had politicians promise they're going to bring something. Is this going to happen? And for the first time, my constituents have hope. We had the Federal Rail Administration come out last month. We've had Pete Meacham, Sean Duffy's chief of staff, and some other people from Department of Transportation come out. We are now in the planning process. We have got tens of millions of dollars worth of grants, both through the Biden and the Trump administration. So this is bipartisan priority. So we're in the planning process. NEPA should be starting soon. We want to make sure that we do things correctly, we do things right, but we have a good plan. This is a public-private partnership, and I think a great opportunity. It is, environmentally responsible. It invests in our supply chain infrastructure. It creates good jobs in a place that desperately needs them, and I'm really excited to be able to be a part of it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very impressive to get 2 administrations backing any kind of project, right?
Especially these
Exactly.
2 administrations. Yeah. And what we have done, this is a very conservative part of my district. They feel let down by elected officials who they lost their jobs. Right. They were promised a just transition, and it's just transitioned into unemployment. I will tell you, I talked with a young man from Washington, and he's an electrician, and he said, I graduated in 2020 in Coos Bay, and I was told I had potential and I needed to get the hell out as soon as possible. Otherwise, it'd be 5 years, I'd have 3 kids, a half-time job, and no way to feed my family. And so I went to Washington, and he said to me, are you telling me I could actually come home? And he got emotional. This is like a young guy. Mm-hmm. This means so much to our community, but I don't want a bridge to nowhere. I want something that's good for the United States. It also means that our trade policy needs to be less erratic.
Yes, yeah, you segued perfectly, because I did want to ask you about trade. There's obviously the trade impacts and decisions from the administration, but then there's something more on the local level, right? So when you're talking about this particular port and what it could be, we're seeing just so much of the shipping going also to places that are already pretty full, right? Like Los Angeles, I think Seattle is another port of entry.
Right.
I mean, how would you strategically be able to, especially once the building really ramps up on this front, how are you going to try and make sure that let people know, hey, we're open, we're about to be open for business, and we'll be faster in being able to, again, ship to rail, get the products to where they need to be in this country?
So we're 7 miles to open ocean.
Yeah.
We're 2 days closer to Japan than Long Beach, but we're not looking to take business from other ports except where it's needed.
Okay.
Right? Like, again, we saw during the pandemic, Long Beach was really backed up. We have to build for the future, and we can't just say, well, this is where we are right now. Again, Canada has seen what the future is, and they've put $3 trillion into Prince Rupert Sound. We should be investing as well. We also have the Port of Portland that, we have a lot of our farmers and ranchers in Eastern Oregon that ship down the Columbia. Our book of business is very different, and I think that we can all work together to strengthen America's position. But what we need is a stable, less erratic trade policy that doesn't burn bridges with our allies and our trade markets. I will say, so we were talking earlier about the Oregon wine industry. We make the best Pinot Noir in the world. That's just a fact. I will fight anyone on that one.
I need to try it.
You need to try it. But we lost 45% of our international sales overnight when Canada took Oregon wines off the shelves in retaliation for what the Trump administration did with tariffs. Tariffs should be a tool, not a weapon, and we need to not leave working people behind. I mean, we still have a hangover from NAFTA and TPP where workers felt like they weren't at the table. We lost, again, 70,000 jobs in Oregon alone and across the country, millions. So fundamentally, I think we need to reset the table on trade. We need to not alienate our allies, and we need to use tariffs as a tool to have high workforce standards, bring jobs back to the United States, and have clear environmental standards so that we're not offshoring, environmental degradation and getting imports after using people from countries using slave labor. We can do all of those things, but it's going to be important we invest in the future, and the Coos Bay port is a big part of that.
I wanted to talk a little bit more about trade, because you must be one of the very few Democrats who have found themselves in the room with administration officials. Just talking to some of your colleagues, it is so hard, even when they have constituent demands or they want to kind of lobby. They have said it's difficult to just get responses back from the administration. And I mean, maybe you have heard differently. That's what I've heard.
No, I have heard that.
But you're in like a position where you can not obviously just talk about this big priority, but also talk about, hey, can we cut it out with trade? Why are we going after Canada? I don't know if you've used that ability to be in the room to talk about other priorities that do affect your district.
So Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro had just a dinner a couple of nights ago with Ambassador Greer, where we had just members only, had a very open conversation about trade and about trade policy. And quite frankly, as someone who came from labor and who is a strong fair trade opponent, even as I was appointed chair of the Export Council of Oregon, the Federal Advisory Board on Trade for Small Business, under the Bush administration. And I was a fair trader then. So there are places of alignment. Look, I have a district that's 45% not Democrat or Republican. You cannot get elected by one party or the other in my district. And so what I've always had to do, whether in the State House or here, is figure out how to work with people on both sides. We have had an incredibly strong working relationship with the Department of Transportation because I walk in with a goal and find places where we can meet. Now that doesn't mean that I back down on criticizing, for instance, blowing things up with our allies when, like, Canada will get wine from New Zealand, and how do you get those markets back? This was my job for 25 years, and I know that it is hard to get markets back when you ruin them. So I will criticize the administration where necessary, but I will work with them when possible. I got sent here to work for my constituents, not for one party, and I think if we could have more of that. Again, am I frustrated with this administration and how we're treated? Yes. Have I been able to get at the table on specific issues? Yes. How? I don't know. I just walk in the door and they're like, you don't
alienate them necessarily or go in with any.
No, I mean, again, it's not personal. I will come out and criticize things that, like, I'm concerned about the future of our democracy. I have strong, active disagreements with what's happening with ICE and CBP and shutting down anyone that doesn't agree with the administration. That's horrific, and I will call that out. And I find people that I can work with because that's what my constituents sent me to do. And if you had to go talk to the kids that are graduating from the South Coast who have no hope, for any kind of future staying there. We used to export logs, now we export our children, and it would be irresponsible of me not to do everything I can and work with anyone possible to make sure that we deliver on the promise for jobs and a strong economy that isn't based in the Portland metro area. I don't represent the Portland metro area. I have no problem with that, I just don't represent them. And I will work every day with anyone on those things. And you know what? If you look hard enough, you can find people to work with.
Of course. I was just about to say, Congresswoman, the passion that you just delivered is something that is sometimes missed up here in the politics and the debates. So first and foremost, good luck on this endeavor. And thank you again for just reminding us of why a lot of lawmakers should be up here and what they should be fighting for. Really appreciate it.
I remember when my father's job, they laid off 3,000 people. It devastated our economy, it devastated our family. And I don't want to see that happen to anyone else. So it's both personal and my responsibility.
Thank you again for coming. Hopefully you can come back and talk to us soon about the next policy you'll be working on.
That would be
Appreciate
great.
it.
Thank you.
When we're back, we're going to have a very robust conversation about the House and the Senate and the pathway to the majorities. House just taking off right now for August recess. So there is a lot to discuss. Stay tuned.
You're watching 535. We'll be right back.
When your child gets sick, time is everything. Getting treatment sooner means more options and a real chance at getting better. Thankfully, almost every new treatment for cancer is available here. And because of strong American leadership, we get these new medicines first. But that can change fast. In other countries, many are told to wait or go without. If Washington copies other countries' policies, we'll have to wait too. It's time to tell Washington, keep America in the lead.
I work hard. My dad worked hard. That's where I got it from. What I take home is my future and my kids' future. And if I can invest in companies, they're going to reflect my principles, what I believe in. So why would those companies hire outside people to tell them to embrace principles I don't believe in? Congress must protect the financial future of Americans from the foreign-owned duopoly that answers to no one.
In Afghanistan, the IED actually penetrated the vehicle between my legs, but it was a miracle that we all survived in the vehicle.
When I began the process to separate from the military, it was during COVID. And with the issues back home, we just knew we got to come back home and take care of the family. So we had to go stay at our mom's house. And there was already 3 people living there and 5 of us, or 8 people. How many bedroom? Like a 2-bedroom. Like a 2-bedroom house. We were desperate.
So then when we transitioned to Texas, it was very much so like, what are we gonna do now?
When I came home, I needed a new roof due to a storm, and I was about to lose homeowners insurance as well. I applied for Operation Homefront Critical Financial Assistance Program. They've really been a blessing.
I'm in the Permanent Homes for Veterans program. They built a house for me, and it's amazing.
We got the call, this is your house, and the kids and I took off just to go sit in the driveway and cry. It's life-changing. It took us from a hopeless situation, and now we're homeowners. We have a savings account.
The best way to describe Operation Homefront is that it's like a family because they're always there for you.
I would say you guys are angels behind closed doors.
Operation Homefront has impacted my family in a way that's probably going to be passed down through my family's history. It's definitely going to be a story that's going to be told for generations.
Welcome back to 535. I am joined by probably some of the sharpest minds that can tell us what could possibly happen in November as the House adjourns for its August recess. The Senate's not too far behind. So many dynamics at play. I'm so excited for this conversation to geek out with both of you. Jessica Taylor, welcome.
Thank you.
You cover the Senate and governors.
Yep.
And then Aaron Covey, you cover the House of Representatives, which has been my playground for the last couple of years. So I wanted to start with you and your expertise on that. Obviously, House Democrats have for some time felt very confident that they could win back the majority, just given a number of issues, dynamics at play, the president, what he's been talking or not talking about as often. But it still could be a very slim majority, and Republicans still have a path, right? Can you tell us a little bit about how you're kind of viewing the landscape at this time?
Yeah, it's not so much that the environment doesn't look great for Democrats right now. It's that the battleground of competitive House races is relatively small, and it's quite a bit smaller than it was in 2018, of course, the last time we were in a midterm during a Trump presidency. And so we're looking at like a different realm of competitive districts as a result. And due to all the redistricting that happened over the past year, Republicans have been able to shore up their majority, which is technically a 3-seat majority. But with redistricting, we think it's effectively more like an 8 or 9-seat majority. So it's a little bit tougher than it looked at the beginning of the cycle.
So what are some of the races that you are looking at? Especially, we're in primary season. August is going to give us more clues as to what's going on. But are there any races in particular, as you look at the next month, you're like, okay, those are the ones to watch. What could they tell us?
Yeah, I mean, we have 18 seats in the toss-up column right now. 14 of those are held by Republicans. So even if you look at our ratings in the competitive districts, Republicans are playing more defense than Democrats right now. One of those toss-up races that I'm watching really closely is Michigan's 7th district, which is held by Congressman Tom Barrett. He won his race November of 2024 by about 4 points, but this is a seat that Trump only won by like a point. So he should be among the kind of easiest seats to flip by Democrats in November. But, you know, he overperformed a little bit, and Democrats have a very contentious primary happening there right now that will resolve itself in 2 weeks. But you have one very progressive candidate in William Lawrence. He's actually a co-founder of the Sunrise Movement. And then you have 2 more moderate candidates, Bridget Brink, former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, and then Matt Mazdum, retired Navy SEAL, who are kind of splitting that center-left lane. And so things have gotten quite contentious. Right now, I would say Lawrence has a slight edge, but we still have time for things to change.
And before I turn it to you, Jessica, one last question on the House. A number of Democrats have been feeling very bullish in Trump districts that he won by over 10. I think even the Bobby Polito seat down in the Texas Grand Rio Valley, that one is a Trump plus 17, but they're feeling really good about that, and even, you know, projecting that maybe there's a bit of, as they like to say, dummy mandering that went on in Florida in particular. We obviously are waiting for the primaries to shake out there, but how are you looking at those races? And are Democrats maybe overplaying their hand, a little too confident that they could flip some of these very Republican districts?
Look, I mean, I put the Hispanic majority seats, which includes Texas 15th district, in a different category than like a standard Trump plus 18 seat, because this was a seat that moved really heavily to the right between 2020 and 2024. Trump only won it by a couple of points in 2020, and so it's a part of the country where there's a lot more kind of an elastic electorate, so you can see bigger swings there. You know, I would say Texas looks like a better environment for Democrats right now than Florida too, just because of the statewide politics there. You have an incredibly competitive Senate race at the top of the ticket that is going to energize Democratic turnout. So I think when I look at polling in Texas right now, it looks better for Democrats in Florida. But to your point, in Florida, we still don't have a lot of information. We don't have the primary results there. So I think we have a bit of a ways to go to see how good of a year it could be for Democrats in Florida. And I think it's important to remind people in 2018, even in 2018, it was not a good year for Democrats in Florida. They did not win those statewide races. And so even in a better national environment, I'm still a little less bullish on Dems in Florida this cycle.
A lot to watch there, and obviously on the Senate side too. I remember even just a year ago, everyone was saying there's no way the Senate can flip. It's just such a favorable map for Republicans. I mean, you can tell us now there are a lot of things at play, and Democrats I don't think are too confident, but they're like, maybe we can do this.
There is a path for Democrats that did not exist at this time last year. And I think it's because they've had strong recruiting. They've gotten recruits like Sherrod Brown in Ohio, like Mary Peltola in Alaska. The North Carolina Senate race is looking the best race for them. We rate that one as lean Democrat with Roy Cooper there in that open seat with Tillich retiring. But there's still some hiccups for Democrats that they've got to get through. I think Maine obviously has been the main thing we've been talking about the past couple of weeks. Now that they have a presumptive nominee in Troy Jackson, we'll see kind of how he withstands scrutiny. He's been in politics for a really long time in the state, going back to the 1990s and early 2000s, but he's never faced this much scrutiny. So he's already, he's certainly not as effective a communicator as Graham Plattner was. There's been reports about his temper and different things, but he comes from a part of the state that Democrats have really struggled to do well in. He's outperformed Biden in that area. He outperformed the 2020 nominee Sarah Gideon. Collins still did better in those areas, but it's interesting because you have two northern Mainers that will be running against each other.
Yeah. That's a good breakdown of Maine, because we're all just waiting to see how it all fleshes out, especially this weekend. They'll officially nominate Troy Jackson. We've obviously also been talking about South Carolina, but I am just struck by the fact that Alaska is one of those races that, again, suddenly on the map.
Right.
I think you all just moved it to toss-up.
A couple of weeks ago,
okay, so tell us a little bit about the decision making there and why that race is becoming even more competitive than expected.
Mary Peltola has a history of overperforming, particularly in better, even in difficult years. So she ran quite a bit ahead by double digits of Kamala Harris on the ballot. She very narrowly lost that House seat, but that was in a presidential year. Now, I think that Dan Sullivan is certainly a better candidate than she faced in the last midterm cycle in Sarah Palin. But there's some interesting dynamics going on there. I think that their state is really affected by the high price of diesel right now, especially with it being fishing season. She's someone that has a connection, I think, to very rural parts of the state. I mean, her slogan is Fish Family Freedom. So she's not running as your typical Democrat. And I think that, you're going to see Republicans just try to tie her to the National Party, but she has places where she is separated from National Democrats. However, there's another interesting wrinkle on the ballot because Alaska has a top 4 primary system with ranked choice voting. Now, there is Dan J. Sullivan that is on the ballot. So that, Republicans tried to kick him off, saying that he's a Democratic plant. He is back on the ballot as Daniel J. Sullivan. The senator will be listed as Dan S. Sullivan as the incumbent. But, in a race that's just a couple of points with ranked choice, could that make the difference? So that wasn't the only reason we shifted that rating, but it was a contributing factor just because the ballot has the potential to be confusing there.
Yeah, and the primary that everybody's talking about is in Michigan. That's in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, what can happen there? I'm sure you all will move that race based on the outcome in next month's primary.
I mean, I do think that Abdul Al-Sayed is a riskier candidate in a state like Michigan. We've seen, as Aaron has covered, some, really in the competitive House races, Aaron had a really good piece on this a couple of weeks ago. We have seen more centrist Democrats that are winning, but Michigan is not, Manhattan.
Sure.
It's not Denver. It's riskier to put a more progressive candidate on the line there. Now, they will argue he can ramp up energy, he can get young voters out. I'm looking to see, there's been a lot of money spent on Haley Stevens' behalf. She has, there was a Detroit News poll this week that had her up about 7. I think it's very close. I'm watching what the black turnout is there in Michigan. She's really relying on black voters, those older black voters in and around Detroit. Those are more reliable primary voters than some of Abdul Al-Sayed's voters that are younger voters that are lower propensity.
Okay. I wanted to ask both of you, there's a number of trends that we can talk about. I'm curious to get your opinion on a number of them, but one that has kind of, throughout this primary season, become a little bit more obvious is, yes, we always talk about the anti-establishment streak that runs through Washington. Like, you hear it on the floor of the House and the Senate when Republicans and Democrats are trying to debate each other, but there almost seems like it's this anti-Washington fervor because there's some lawmakers who, for example, ran for governors, and I can't even say that they're establishment because they've barely been on Capitol Hill that long, right? So, how are you all watching that, and what does that mean, and how should that inform a number of campaigns, a number of lawmakers who are asking voters, hey, send me back, I got this, I can do the thing for you?
I think I'm going to be watching in that South Carolina race to see if Ralph Norman can break through because he did run for governor. He lost. He came in 3rd, but he, does that sort of stink of Washington make that primary there? Or do you have Darlene Graham that has her late brother's name, not as well known? She's sort of presenting herself as, I think she just put out, familiar name, but new to Washington. Can she kind of capitalize on that? But you're right, we've seen Randy Feenstra lose in Iowa, we've seen Norman and Mace lose, we've seen Michael Bennett. I think there were some unique things at play in each of those races. Feenstra really did not run a very good campaign in Iowa. I think he took a lot of it for granted. if someone like John James loses the Michigan primary for governor, I think that could be a real, turning, or let's see how Byron Donalds does in Florida.
Sure.
They're both leading, but they do have primary challengers. How well do these outside of Washington primary challengers do against them?
Erin, are you seeing this trend too in the House a little bit, or
Yeah.
what are other dynamics you're also are becoming more obvious to you?
I mean, we have seen a number of incumbents lose their primaries already this cycle, and there's a couple more that are quite vulnerable. I mean, Sri Tanadar in Michigan is one that I'm watching in 2 weeks. Ed Case in Hawaii as well, John Larson in Connecticut. So I do think, to your point, there is this a stronger kind of anti-Washington streak among Democratic primary voters than we have seen in the past. And I think a lot of that stems from frustration with party leadership and frustration with members who have been around a really long time and don't have that much to show for it in the minds of these voters. Like that's what we saw in Colorado with Diana DeGette. Her challenger was definitely running to her left on a lot of issues, but I think a lot of it was just the contrast in her 3 decades of experience on the House, but having a very low profile with a young, much more dynamic challenger in Malak Quiros. And so I think that is playing into a lot of these primaries. They are very ideological too, and I do think that the Democratic Party base has really moved left on some issues, particularly the issue of support for Israel, and that has really made it difficult for some of these Democratic incumbents to navigate.
Yeah, that's definitely been a topic of debate even up here. Jessica, I want to ask you just takeaways for governor's races, because those, at least up here, aren't watched as much.
But they could have big implications on redistricting in some of these places. Right. So it's interesting because we have a couple that are more competitive than we expected. In Iowa and Ohio, we both have those in toss-up. Looking at a state like Wisconsin, we have a really big, there's really confusing primary there on the Democratic side, but you have Congressman Tom Tiffany that is he's sailing, he doesn't have a main primary challenge. I think that governor's races are unique because they can be more about the person than the party. I like to say there's no prize for getting the most governorships. So I think that's how you can end up with an Andy Beshear that's governor, a Democrat in Kentucky, but a Phil Scott that's a Republican in Vermont. We're going to see a lot of turnover in these governor's races, but you're right, some of these members of Congress that wanted to go back home have not been as successful. It's also surprising to me those senators that are leaving to run for governor, because it used to be the other way. I went back and looked. This is the most senators that we've ever had looking to leave to run for governor. Michael Bennet was not successful. We have on August 6th, Marsha Blackburn in a primary there with John Rose. I still think she's favored, but that race could be a little bit tighter than we expected.
That's actually a fascinating point, because I have heard just lawmakers even privately being like, man, I just want to go home. Like, wouldn't it be better to be a governor or even like serve in the state legislature again? Because you can actually get more done.
Yeah, I think being governor is so much better than you're one of 100. You're just stuck here in gridlock. And I think that's why you saw many governors, like Joe Manchin when he was here, famously did not like the Senate.
So if you had to say today, who would win the House majority? What do you think?
Definitely Democrats.
Yeah.
I don't think that, Republicans have a path, but it is narrow, and they have to really pitch a perfect game.
Yeah, and you hopefully not land on any October surprise landmines.
We'll
that's
see.
always the question. What about you in the Senate? What do you think?
Republicans are still favored because, again, like Erin said, everything has to go right for Democrats. There is a path, though, that did not exist. And if we see particularly gas prices continue to go up, fatigue with the war, Trump is certainly not helping members on either side of Capitol Hill right now with everything that he is focusing on instead of wanting to focus on affordability issues. So certainly the environment could worsen for Republicans in the Senate, but if it were held today, I think Republicans would still hold on.
Thank you both for coming and breaking it down so efficiently. This was a great conversation, and I know I will be actually bugging both of you the more we get into this general election season. So thanks again for coming.
Great to chat.
Yeah, thanks for having us on.
Of course. Make sure to stay tuned. There's a congressman who has a bill about supporting unions, how to strengthen them. We'll be right back.
You're watching 535, and we'll be right back.
I work hard. My dad worked hard. That's where I got it from. What I take home is my future and my kids' future. And if I can invest in companies, they're going to reflect my principles, what I believe in. So why would those companies hire outside people to tell them to embrace principles I don't believe in. Congress must protect the financial future of Americans from the foreign-owned duopoly that answers to no one.
When your child gets sick, time is everything. Getting treatment sooner means more options and a real chance at getting better. Thankfully, almost every new treatment for cancer is available here. And because of strong American leadership, we get these new medicines first. But that can change fast. In other countries, many are told to wait or go without. If Washington copies other countries' policies, we'll have to wait too. It's time to tell Washington, keep America in the lead.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Rome. I've played many roles on TV and film, but today I want to speak to you as myself about a cause that's very dear to my heart. The Cancer Prevention and Treatment Fund provides free help to those who have cancer and those who wish to prevent it. They've also worked tirelessly on banning cancer-causing chemicals in our homes and neighborhoods. I want to thank them as a mom for protecting our families. Please donate today at the Cancer Prevention and Treatment Fund at stopcancerfund.com.
I enlisted as a medic to be there to help my patients, and after an injury, I found myself as a patient. I experienced post-traumatic seizures. Depression is a big one that comes along with it, PTSD. So I pursued my PhD in neuroscience and regenerative medicine. The coalition has helped fund my academic pursuits. They genuinely care about helping the vet in whatever way that they can. Through supporting the coalition, you're supporting some of the veterans that have the biggest needs.
Visit saluteheroes.org to learn more.
We are Lions International, one association of global volunteers, one foundation for humanitarian grants, shaping the future, one act of kindness at a time. We are on a mission to improve health and well-being, to strengthen communities, to serve a world in need. We are Lions International.
To learn more, visit lionsclubs.org.
5:35, back on in the Cannon Rotunda. Congressman Bobby Scott served here since 1993. He is the Dean of the Virginia Congressional Delegation. He and I just did some informal math. It means we are in our 17th terms, representing the 3rd District of Virginia. Democrat is also the top Democrat on the House Education Committee. I want to start off with the PRO Act. This is a piece of legislation which bears the name of a union official of great importance, but it also seeks to make it easier for labor to organize. Explain how it works.
Well, it just enforces the law. Right now, the law sanctions against unfair labor practices are so modest that it's essentially meaningless. If someone is organizing a union, which they have the right to do, and get fired, that's an unfair labor practice. But the sanction is that after all the discussion and findings, you get your job back and back pay minus what you made on the side. If you happen to get a good union job on the side, you're probably making more than you made, so there's essentially no sanction other than you get your job back. This has meaningful civil penalties. For multiple offenses, it gets higher, but basically it deters employers from committing unfair labor practices when people are trying to join a union. We know that those who join unions get higher pay, get better benefits, work in safer workplaces, and that we need more of that now, because over the last few decades, the income for the upper income groups has gone up much higher than those for the typical worker. And in fact, one study showed that the portion of the GDP that lands in workers' pockets, as opposed to dividends and everything else, that ends in workers' pockets, is the lowest it's been in at least half a century, and getting worse. And so the fact that you can join a union can combat that to make sure that the workers get a fair share of the economy.
Let's put the value of unions aside. Would there be conservative pushback, Congressman, that would argue we already have enough safeguards in place to protect against the kind of things you just described?
Well, I'm sure there are pushbacks against forming a union and the right to unionize. Part of the PRO Act provides safeguards against misclassifying workers instead of as employees, but as independent contractors. If you're an employee, you have rights of employment. Like if you lose your job through no fault of your own, you get unemployment compensation. If you get hurt on the job, you get workers' comp. You get minimum wage and overtime. Those are the kinds of things that happen if you are an employee. If you're an independent contractor, you get none of that. And so part of the PRO Act provides that you can't misclassify people as independent contractors.
Is that more difficult because we are shifting so noticeably to a gig economy in certain spaces, in certain industries?
Well, yeah, there's a little of that, and there's just a push towards lax regulation on classification. When people go to work, they're generally employees. They work more than 40 hours a week, they expect overtime. If they're classified as independent contractors, they do not get overtime. Every time you turn around, there's some effort on the part of the other side of the aisle to make it easier to classify people as independent contractors. They say, well, people choose to be independent contractors. There's flexibility in it. What is flexibility if you want in employment? You can have an employment where you're working from home or you have flexible hours. You can do that as an employee. They're trying to make it so that they're saying that you choose to be an independent contractor. No, you choose to get a job. And if the employer says if you want the job, you're going to be an independent contractor, that's not a choice. You don't choose to give up your right to overtime, minimum wage, workers' comp if you get hurt, unemployment compensation if you lose your job through no fault of your own, and the right to organize. If you're independent contractors, you cannot organize a union. So of course there's pushback against the PRO Act because there's a great effort to be able to misclassify workers to get out from under all of the rights employees have.
The Education Department is clearly part of your jurisdiction. On the Education Committee, it's going through remarkable change, dramatic change. Explain the advocacy you've done on ensuring there are still services for special needs students and civil rights cases.
Well, first of all, let's be honest about what the Department of Education is. It's not as much of a, quote, education department as it is a civil rights department. All of the education, so we're going to send education back in the States. Well, it's already been at the States, it's never left. Curriculum, graduation requirements, teacher preparation, all of that's done by the states. What the federal government does is make sure you have equitable access to a quality education. Whatever they're providing, you have a right to it. And so the Elementary and Secondary Education Act provides funding for low-income areas. We fund education through the real estate tax. Obviously, low-income areas are going to be at a significant disadvantage. So Title I money goes into low-income areas. Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. Those with disabilities, before that act passed, if you were in a wheelchair, you just couldn't go to high school. English is a second language. Racial achievement gaps. That's what whatever education you got, you ought to have equal access to it. That's what the Department of Education is supposed to be doing. What they're doing is dismantling it. They started with the...
But they're outsourcing it to a different agency, right?
They haven't technically abolished it, but they're outsourcing it to people that don't know what they're doing. They're outsourcing student loans to the Department of Treasury, as if the student loan is just a loan and payback transaction. Well, what courses are eligible for student loans? What schools are eligible for student loans? When is a student defrauded and eligible for a discharge of a student loan? These guys in Treasury don't know. And why are you moving it anyway? They're saying they're bringing all of the employees and moving them over, so they got to move them from one building to another, refurnish all these offices, and what do you get? Same people doing the same thing, except they're reporting to a secretary that doesn't know what's going on. And then the people in the localities who've been working with student loans and calling the Department of Education all of a sudden don't know who to call, what number to call. There's total confusion. They have the student loan program in particular is in a state of flux. People are having to change programs, and in all this complication, you have a situation where nobody knows where anybody is, can't get any information.
Let me ask you a more fundamental question about that. There's a frustration, to put it mildly, with student loans. Not just the way the system functions, but that they are so very necessary because the costs of college are so preposterous in certain schools and certain areas. See why kids are less interested and engaged in going to college right now? Because they see the bills, they see the burden, and they see AI and go, maybe this isn't for me. What do we do about that?
Well, first of all, we could go back to what we had in 1965 when President Johnson signed the Higher Education Act. He said it meant that any student in any state could go to any college, can apply to any college and not be turned away because the family is poor. That's exactly the way it was. The Pell Grant covered 80% of the cost of going to a state college, tuition, room, and board. 80%. You can get a summer job and part-time work during the school year, graduate with no debt. Now the Pell Grant covers less than 30% of that cost. The other 70%, you can work a 40-hour-a-week job and not be able to pay it. So that's the first thing. The Pell Grant hadn't come anywhere close to keeping up with the cost of college, and that's why that 70%. That's where all these big loans come from. People are calculating for the first time whether or not a college education is even worth the effort. That's a major step back. College education has always been the major step forward in socioeconomic.
It's a big problem for the colleges too.
Well, if people aren't going to college, they have fewer students, less revenue. But I mean, the college degree has been the ticket to upward mobility in America. Now, there are other opportunities. There are a lot of trades, apprenticeships that pay well, just as well, and even more than many college programs. But that's a choice the student ought to be able to make. Not, well, if you can't afford to go, we got other things for you. And that's where we are today. People are making rational calculations that starting off with huge debt, even though you may be moving up in a socioeconomic way and have many more opportunities. Those opportunities just aren't there. That's just not fair. And it's not the way it was in 1965 and many decades after that. And that's because we haven't made the investments in Pell Grants to make sure that the students can afford to go and pay the bills. What the big ugly bill last year did was actually put limits on it to make sure you couldn't go. Right now, a low-income student can't go to medical school or law school under that bill. Unless they can find $50,000 to $100,000 outside of the student financial aid system.
Are the community colleges immune from some of this, or are they benefiting from some of this?
Some, most of the Pell Grants and other programs can cover the cost of a community college, and that's a choice. But when President Johnson said you can go to any college, any university, in any state and not be turned away because the family is poor, that promise is gone. Particularly with the big ugly bill they passed last year that put limits on what you can borrow. The measly Pell Grant is not keeping up, and they don't even allow you to borrow the rest. We have legislation pending. I've introduced a bill to significantly increase the Pell Grant, make student loan
by a percentage or to a certain dollar threshold.
Double it over the course of next couple of years, and that doesn't even get you close to the 80% that it used to be, but it'd be a whole lot more than it is. Also, reduce the interest rate. There are other bills to eliminate the interest rate on student loans, and then make the discharge programs. You can pay off your loan by working with a public service organization. That's the present law, but it's 10 years. Make that a little more generous, maybe 7 or 8 years. I mean, those are the kinds of things you can make going to college much more affordable. But under the present situation, particularly with this big ugly bill limitation, a lot of students are not going to be able to go to college.
I want to ask you in our remaining moments about the Virginia 3rd District. You paint a picture for folks as to what that is. What's the unique caricature of the 3rd District?
Well, the 3rd District comprises the cities of Newport News, Hampton, Norfolk, Portsmouth, and part of Chesapeake, Virginia, and Southeast Virginia, Hampton Roads.
Right there on the water.
Well, right on the James River,
yeah.
Right on the James River. And it's a lot of shipbuilding, with Newport News Shipbuilding, where we build aircraft carriers, Norfolk Naval Shipbuilding, a lot of military installations, Norfolk Naval Shipyard. So it's heavily military and shipbuilding. It's also have a lot of attractions, Nauticus, Living Museum, the Children's Museum, Virginia Beach is nearby, Williamsburg, Colonial Williamsburg is nearby. There are a lot of family activities that for tourists to come in.
You've got that summer beach traffic too, don't you, in the third?
It's the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel is a disaster. It's being reconstructed by this time next year. Hopefully people will be able to drive straight through.
Oh, it's a spectacle though. It is quite a thing to see in person.
You have to allow, if you're going anywhere close to rush hour, which means most of the day during the summer, you just have to allow another 45 minutes to get over that bridge.
You bring something relaxing and take your blood pressure down while you sit.
It's a long wait.
Bobby Scott is the Dean of the Virginia Congressional Delegation, been here among the 535 since 1993. Top Democrat on the House Education Committee. Thank you, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Scott.
You're watching 535. We're back in a moment.
You're watching 535, and we'll be right back.
When your child gets sick, time is everything. Getting treatment sooner means more options and a real chance at getting better. Thankfully, almost every new treatment for cancer is available here. And because of strong American leadership, we get these new medicines first. But that can change fast. In other countries, many are told to wait or go without. If Washington copies other countries' policies, we'll have to wait too. It's time to tell Washington, keep America in the lead.
You're watching 535.
This is 535.
You're watching 535.
You're watching 535.
You're watching 535.
We're live from the Capitol, and 535 starts right now.
Welcome back to 535. I'm Paul Kane of Notice. We are joined now by John Updike, the founder and president of Open Primaries. We have paid so much attention to primary elections in the media in the last few months, all the way from big races like the Senate race in Texas to House races in New York City. What's the quick way to explain to people how this skews our politics? Because that's what's really happening, where you have very few people who are participating, but who are having impactful votes.
Well, I think there's two main ways that it skews things, Paul. First is that many states don't allow independent voters to participate at all. So you're eliminating the more heterodox, open-minded voters from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
But it goes even deeper than that, because we Americans have all been educated that the real election is in November.
Mm-hmm.
That primaries are kind of for the fanatics, for the hardcore political people, but regular people vote in November. The problem is, come November, 90% of congressional races, 95% of state leg races have been decided because of gerrymandering and other factors. Those elections are not in doubt, except in a handful of swing districts. So the problem is both legal exclusion, but also cultural. People really don't see the primary as an important election.
Now, how do you turn that around, and how do you get more participation? Your friends and cohorts at Unite America, we were just talking about, I think their line is something like 90 to 92% of the House of Representatives will be decided by less than 10% of the voters. If I remember, we still have a few more primaries to go, but that's roughly what we're looking at. What can you do to change that?
Well, it's an uphill battle. I mean, we have to change laws, and we're pursuing that in court. We have legal action in Maryland, in Pennsylvania, in Oregon. We're in state legislatures. We just passed a bill in the state assembly in Delaware. We're pursuing legislation in Maryland, in New York, and other states. And we have a ballot referendum in Massachusetts. But we have so much more to do to change minds. We have to educate people, and there's some really creative entrepreneurial work being done in states like Tennessee.
How so?
Well, public education, letting people know that if you want to impact on who represents you, Tennessee has the most uncompetitive general elections of any state in the country. After the primary.
Really?
Oh yeah, it's decided. There's red districts and there's blue districts, and there's like 6 purple districts out of the entire state Senate and state legislature.
Wow.
And yet they have 14% turnout in the primaries, 64% turnout in the general election. So they're running, one of our colleagues in Tennessee, Best of Tennessee, is running public education ads to inform people that if you want to influence your state legislator, you need to vote in the first election, because that's the one that matters. But we have to do that all over the country. We have to do that in open primary states, closed primary states. This is a big task that we've taken on.
Someone they should talk to is Lamar Alexander.
Yes.
The former 2-term governor, 3-term senator. He has a book out now that is mostly focusing on his education, he calls it, as a senator. But when I talked to him, we talked about 75 minutes a couple months ago. One of his biggest regrets in politics, which is a very strange thing for him to say, a very devout Republican, he said was the implosion of the Democratic Party in Tennessee led to worse government.
Yes.
And that he said that they used to have really great people. He was afraid to bash the current crop of Tennessee delegation, so he didn't do so by name. But he basically said when they were a competitive state, they produced really great senators, really great members of the House, and governors as well. Is that sort of the
Totally.
goal?
I mean, look, there are probably somewhere between a half a dozen and a dozen states that right now are completely red. 10, 20 years ago, they elected Democrats to governor, to Senate. States like South Dakota, like Montana.
Yeah.
South Dakota, for example, one of our state leader, Joe Kirby, very conservative guy, lifelong Republican, loves the no taxes in South Dakota. This is an arch conservative, and he says the worst thing that's ever happened to conservatism in South Dakota is the lack of competition. Because what the Republican Party in South Dakota, now that they have, I mean, the Democratic Party might as well be the Green Party in South Dakota. There's all kinds of scandals, misappropriation of funds, no shows, stupid legislation, all kinds of performatory things that don't have to do with, really good conservative governance. So you're 100% right. It's not just Tennessee, it's not just South Dakota. The lack of general election competition is bad for the Democrats, it's bad for the Republicans, and it's bad for the voters.
Another state that has the flip side of that that's really happening fast is Colorado. Colorado 25 years ago was a really competitive purple state. They had 25 years ago, they had 2 Republican senators, a Republican governor, and every 4 years, people like George Bush, Al Gore, George Bush, John Kerry were fighting like heck for Colorado. Now, it has gone so blue that in 2022, their incumbent senator and governor, Michael Bennet and Jared Polis, won by bigger margins in the general election than in New York, where you had Kathy Hochul and Chuck Schumer. But now, just a few weeks ago, that primary, basically Democrats are the Republican Party is so non-existent there that Democrats have just moved even further left, right? How was the turnout there, do you know, off the top of your head?
Yeah, and what's actually, I think, I both agree with your narrative and your story, but I think it's actually a little more complex.
Okay.
Because under the surface, voters in 2014 passed, 2016 rather, passed a ballot referendum to let independents vote in the primaries.
In Colorado?
Yes.
Okay.
That's been in place now for a decade. One of the consequences is that there are now more registered independents in Colorado than Democrats and Republicans combined. They're 51%. And they get to choose. And because the Republicans have gotten really out of step with Colorado, more and more independents are choosing the Democratic ballot to vote in the primary. Now, this is where conventional wisdom gets challenged, because people tend to think of independents as moderates, right?
Yeah.
Not true. Completely and utterly not true. Independents are as ideologically diverse as, any community. They're conservative, they're libertarian, they're green, they're socialist, they're moderate, they're liberal, they're okay. the thing that they're hungry for, and I think this is why you see you see some DSA candidates doing well in Colorado, you see some establishment candidates doing well in Colorado, is that independents who make up more and more of the primary electorate are looking for leadership. They're looking for something that is not just the standard either team blue or team red, more problem solvers, people that can work across the aisle, whether they're a feisty socialist or a rock solid establishment. And you're starting to see more and more independents participate in the primaries, which is starting to lead to these kind of unusual results.
Yeah. Here's one that I'll throw out. It's just a random stat that I might be off by a couple hundred votes here or there. But in 2018, in the New York congressional primaries, the star that is known as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was launched, defeating 20-year incumbent Joe Crowley.
Yeah.
Do you know off the top of your head how many votes she received?
It's like 15,000.
Yes. Damn, you're good. All right. Yes, there was less than 30,000 total votes in that primary.
Yeah.
And one of the ironies is painful for Joe Crowley because his career really got ended. Because they do that thing where they break up the congressional primaries one day, the gubernatorial and state legislative primaries another day. There were way more people that voted in the gubernatorial primary for his old friend Governor Cuomo at the time. And if they had been on the same day,
you would have seen more
a lot
people
of
voting.
the Cuomo voters would have been Crowley voters, and we might never, AOC still might mean architect of the Capitol to a lot of people.
Sure, no,
here.
New York, there's a lot of chickens coming home to roost right now. And there has been decades of institutional investment in keeping turnout as low as humanly possible in New York. It's got the worst rules, primaries, no independents can vote, but candidates getting on the ballot is very hard. As you mentioned, the primaries are presidential, state, federal, and local are all on different days.
Yeah.
So they make sure you can't get excitement around any particular election. And part of what you see is that people like Joe Crowley in safe districts, they got comfy.
Yes.
And they stopped, here's a word they had forgot how to use, how to campaign, how to knock on a door, how to talk to a voter. They just were like, hey, Republicans can't beat me in this district. I don't have a primary challenger. I just got to get a few endorsements and coast to 85%. And AOC upset that apple cart, and that's happening more and more in New York. But it comes after decades of driving turnout to the lowest in the country through a whole variety of mechanisms.
So do you think, final question, do you think that these losses that we're seeing in places like New York, where incumbents are losing because there is so little turnout, are we re-engineering the system and they're going to say, wait, we want more people than we possibly can get?
You would think, but they're not. No. I mean, the New York State Democratic establishment and the DSA are both united in opposing more participation, open primaries. They don't, and it's unfortunate. And I think we're working right now to meet with Mayor Mondami in New York City. He just came out and said that he's content with New York City's closed primary system. And we want to educate him about the 1.2 million independent voters that live in New York City that can't vote. I mean, there's double the number of independents than Republicans in New York City. They're locked out. The primary is the only election in 95% of New York City. And he said, I'm fine with it being closed. And here's a mayor who's supposed to be a champion of the little guy, of shaking things up, and yet he's defending a Tammany Hall system. So we're not giving up on Mayor Mondami, though. We're going to educate him. We're going to meet with him. We're going to have a town hall where he gets to meet several hundred independent voters. And hopefully that's going to change his mind.
All right. Well, good luck with that. All right, everybody. We're wrapped up here with John Updike, and we'll be right back with 535.
You're watching 535, and we'll be right back.
There are moments that shape an organization's future. A policy shift, a crisis or investigation, a market shock. When that moment hits, the clock starts. Markets move in minutes. Regulators, employees, and customers respond instantly. Narrative helps leaders respond with pace, engage stakeholders with precision, and position brands with perspective. So when challenges emerge, you can navigate complexity and lead with clarity before the narrative is defined for you.
When your child gets sick, time is everything. Getting treatment sooner means more options and a real chance at getting better. Thankfully, almost every new treatment for cancer is available here. And because of strong American leadership, we get these new medicines first. But that can change fast. In other countries, many are told to wait or go without. If Washington copies other countries' policies, we'll have to wait too. It's time to tell Washington, keep America in the lead.
Welcome back to 535. I'm Brody Mullins here with Karen Abert, President and CEO of the American Gas Association.
That's right.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Brody.
So there are so many things going on in your world these days. Let's start with permitting reform that everyone's buzzing about. Where do things stand right now?
Well, this is a really important moment. You know, the clock. We are against the clock. We've got two bills that have already passed the House. They're over in the Senate. The Senate is studying hard. There's one bill out there from Senator Armstrong. Senator Whitehouse and Senator Capito are still in deep negotiations of what their efforts might yield. So we're really hopeful, but it's really important for people to understand how important this is. This isn't about just building pipes or wires. It's about unleashing the entire power of energy in our economy. As we like to call it, it's the big E. It's the enabler of the economy of the future, permitting reform.
And you guys support clear statutory timelines, improved interagency coordination, and judicial review. Tell us about judicial review. What does that mean?
Sure. The biggest cost to building an infrastructure project today in America is the endless litigation. So when it takes an act of Congress, or even previously it took an act of the Supreme Court to be able to permit a big pipeline or a big project, that just piles costs on. And in the case of the Supreme Court, it actually, the project proponent had to withdraw the project because it just became too expensive. So if you're a dairy farmer in Hawaii, you shouldn't have the right to sue about something that's happening in Massachusetts. So you have to have standing, and the courts have to be limited in the amount of time that they can review this, and also not to be able to reject permits once they are actually permitted.
So in the House has passed a few dozen bills on this. The whole problem here is in the Senate. Senator Capito and Whitehouse are the key players. But tell us about Senator Armstrong. He's the newest senator, and he's right in the middle of this. Give us a little bit about his background and what he brings to the table.
Sure. Well, he's an energy executive. He was the president and CEO of Williams, which is one of the biggest pipeline companies in the country, and then he's executive chairman before the governor selected him to be the junior senator from Oklahoma. He has made it very clear that with his 8 months that he's going to be here, he wants his legacy to be permitting reform. He's a huge champion. He's lived the other end of it, of how hard it is to build. The pipeline right now that is being permitted in the Northeast is a Williams pipeline, so he's acutely familiar with how difficult it is, how expensive it can be, and ultimately that cost is borne by consumers over time.
And he came out with a new bill and had a big event that you were just talking about. Tell us about that.
So he had a big event, standing room only, up on Capitol Hill where we are right now. And he had Senate leadership there, he had House leadership, it was a bipartisan meeting, he had the governor of Oklahoma, he had every element of the energy industry. I spoke at the event along with friends from all aspects, so it's pipes, it's renewable energy, it's all things unite the energy system in favor of permitting reform, and he captured that and had those industries in the room.
So the key question is it possible to get a vote before August? And if not, what does that mean for September?
Well, as I said, we're running against the clock. That's unfortunate, but that's the way this operation up here works. They work well under pressure. And if it doesn't happen before recess, there's still an opportunity in September, but that's also a crowded calendar. There's a lot of things they need to get done, and I know certainly the appropriations folks are hoping that they get their work done too.
Right.
So
we
lots of
talked about
things to get done.
appropriations, right. So then, not to get there, but what does it mean for the lame duck then? I mean, if we're going to go if appropriations is going to be September, is there any chance you could get a deal in during the lame duck?
There is a chance, and I think I heard Mike Summers tell you the other day, sometimes lame duck is really lame, and so we don't want it to fall into lame duck, but if we do, And if it does, we'll be there full-throated support to get it over the transom.
And I think that another thing that Mike Summers and I talked about, I'd love your opinion, is if Democrats win the House and maybe the Senate, which is what people are expecting, and obviously anything can happen, is there any chance that this could move next year, given that there is some bipartisan support here?
I think there could be. I think the bill would look a lot different. I think right now, the reason it passed out of the House in a bipartisan manner is it accommodated everybody. There could be an instinct to start to limit that if the Democrats take over one or both chambers. I don't suspect it'll be both. We still have the president in the White House, and I don't suspect he's going to sign something that is contrary to his energy dominance agenda.
Sure. Let's talk about the DOE appliance regulations. This is another important priority for you. Tell us about that.
Sure. So DOE has the statutory authority to set appliance efficiency standards. Unfortunately, over time, and the previous administration in particular, they weaponized that to accommodate and embrace their environmental agenda. So if you remember the big kerfuffle over gas stoves, they were trying to regulate through efficiency standards the elimination of gas stoves. They did the same thing for gas furnaces. We just took that all the way to the Supreme Court and won an ability to bring it back to the lower court. DOE is now set out on an agenda to reform the way that it can set those efficiency standards, which actually brings it back to its original intent. You have to regulate appliances for efficiency only, not in terms of emissions reductions.
Everyone's talking about affordability. I feel like your industry has a central role in affordability. I saw a stat that said that something like natural gas has saved Americans $99 billion over 10 years.
That's real money.
So how do you get that message out to the American people and to Congress?
Well, permitting reform is affordability. All the things that we're doing, the appliance standards is affordability. All the things that we are pushing will make energy continue to be affordable. Right now, the average family saves about $1,000 a year if you use natural gas. You referenced the $99 billion, but what I think people don't realize is that even with what's going on in the Middle East and in Europe and Ukraine and Russia, natural gas is still the most affordable way to heat your home by a factor of 3.5. And that, according to EIA, the Energy Information Administration, will remain the case until 2050. The most affordable way to do the things that Americans enjoy every day. Heat your home, cook your food, wash your clothes, dry your clothes, go to work, and be comfortable in your place of business.
On another affordability topic, LIHEAP. LIHEAP is the Low Income Heating Assistance Program. Been around for a long time, always a little underfunded. Now I think it's underfunded by about $1 billion. This is an appropriations issue. Tell us where you guys stand here.
Sure. Well, we thank the leadership in both the House and the Senate that have kept LIHEAP alive. It did go up during COVID. We've come back to where we are normally. We just received a $10 million increase, which we're grateful for.
$10 million?
Yes.
Okay.
But this is really, really important for families and businesses, particularly families, low income and senior citizens that in a time of extreme cold or extreme heat, both of which are very, very dangerous to human health, can't pay their bills. And LIHEAP is there as their insurance policy to be able to help them pay their bills so they don't have to choose between food and fuel, medicine and fuel, housing and fuel. And we help them out when it's hard to, but it is underfunded. Only 1 in 6 eligible families receives LIHEAP. So we would be grateful for more funding.
And that'll come up in the appropriations process in September?
Yes.
Okay. Last two questions, and we'll have a couple minutes left. Pipeline safety reauthorization is also up. Man, you've got a million issues going on right now. So tell us about that one.
So we have two committees of jurisdiction in the House. T&I, Transportation and Infrastructure, and Energy and Commerce. In the Senate, it's just one. The Senate has done its job. It has passed FEMA reauthorization. The House has now done its job, and they've passed 2 different bills. What we need is those 2 committees to get together to aggregate those, and they're very similar, so it should be easy to get a House bill that can be voted on, and then the conference between the Senate and the House will happen. We haven't done FEMA reauthorization on a bipartisan basis for 10 years.
Wow.
This is actually a bipartisan effort in both the House and the Senate, so hopefully we can get it over and done before the elections.
Last question I wanted to ask you about 811, the Call Before You Dig program. What is this about?
So the biggest problem we have right now on building pipes is excavation damage. 811 is something that everybody should use, whether you are cutting down a tree in your backyard or a major improvement in your business. Call 811. They will come out and they will mark the lines so that people do not cut a pipeline.
And right now people do that. They just dig, cut.
Yes, but they're because 811, and remember August 11th, that's coming up. We'll have a big campaign, public campaign about 811. Call before you dig. Every state has a call center that will take the call and send out the notice and the tickets to the utilities that need to go mark their lines.
Fascinating. Karen Abert, President and CEO of the American Gas Association, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm Brody Mullins. We'll be right back on 535.
You're watching 535. We'll be right back.
In Afghanistan, the IED actually penetrated the vehicle between my legs, but it was a miracle that we all survived in the vehicle.
When I began the process to separate from the military, it was during COVID. And with the issues back home, we just knew we got to come back home and take care of the family. So we had to go stay at our mom's house. And there was already 3 people living there and 5 of us, or 8 people. How many bedroom? Like a 2-bedroom. It was like a 2-bedroom house. We were desperate.
So then when we transitioned to Texas, it was very much so like, what are we gonna do now?
When I came home, I needed a new roof due to a storm, and I was about to lose homeowners insurance as well. I applied for Operation Homefront Critical Financial Assistance Program. They've really been a blessing.
I'm in the Permanent Homes for Veterans program. They built a house for me, and it's amazing.
We got the call, this is your house, and the kids and I took off just to go sit in the driveway and cry. It's life-changing. It took us from a hopeless situation, and now we're homeowners. We have a savings account.
The best way to describe Operation Homefront is that it's like a family, because they're always there for you.
I would say you guys are angels behind closed doors.
Operation Homefront has impacted my family in a way that's probably going to be passed down through my family's history. It's definitely going to be a story that's going to be told for generations.
When your child gets sick, time is everything. Getting treatment sooner means more options and a real chance at getting better. Thankfully, almost every new treatment for cancer is available here. And because of strong American leadership, we get these new medicines first. But that can change fast. In other countries, many are told to wait or go without. If Washington copies other countries' policies, we'll have to wait too. It's time to tell Washington, keep America in the lead.
A simple blood test can detect Alzheimer's years before symptoms appear. Congress can connect Americans to early, accurate dementia diagnosis by supporting the bipartisan Alzheimer's Screening and Prevention Act, allowing Medicare to cover blood-based Alzheimer's screening. Congress has acted to cover mammograms and other life-saving screenings. Now it can redefine Alzheimer's care, unlocking early detection and access to FDA-approved treatments when they work best. Congress, it's up to you. Paid for by the Alzheimer's Association.
Welcome back to 535. I'm Paul Kane of Notice. I'm joined by my friend Oliver Libby. He's the author of this book, Strong Floor, No Ceiling. Back in November, I was watching House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries was getting sort of chased by a bunch of reporters that were asking questions about sort of the rising, it was a smart questions to be asking about the rising influence of the sort of DSA, the socialist wing of the Democratic Party. And Jeffries on point stopped, turned, looked at the reporters and said about the Democratic Party, he said, "We believe in a country where you have a strong floor and no ceiling. That's what we believe in." So explain to us what this book is about and how you have been able to, become something of a very informal advisor who talks to some Democrats to give them sort of pointers on this agenda and messaging.
Well, Paul, first of all, thanks for having me on. And second of all, I wouldn't go so far as to say even that. I'm privileged to be able to speak to some folks, and I'm glad that that Strong Floor, No Ceiling is making a difference.
Sure.
What I intended when I wrote the book was to provide a vision for the country. We have so much anger and frustration, and that's very well justified by so much of what the American people are experiencing, but there's never been a big political movement or groundswell in America that wasn't accompanied with a what are we going to do for you kind of vision. And strong floor, no ceiling, to me, encompasses the best of what the kind of the center, the heart of the Democratic Party believes, which is we should have a floor below which people don't fall, and the planks are the things we've worked on for generations. It's healthcare, education, good paying jobs, safety in your community, affordable living, and justice, and access to opportunity for all. But, and this is the critical thing, we need to decide if we're a party of opportunity that is pro-success or if we're anti-wealth and success. And I think if you talk to voters, and we have, what you find is that they want to believe there's no ceiling to their aspirations if they work hard and play by the rules. So happy to talk more about what those things are, but for me, that's a vision that I think crosses through all the aspects of the big tent and provides a tentpole message for the party.
Okay, and your background, explain to everybody your background in New York, and being raised by incredibly successful parents, not in the financial world, in medical. So, how did you get here?
Look, I was raised by a family of doctors and scientists. I was privileged to have 2 Nobel laureates in my immediate family. And so, you grow up around that dinner table, and there's a devotion to truth. There's a devotion to making sure that your life means something. And there's a devotion to helping people. My dad is 79 now and still takes medical call twice a year, seeing patients. He doesn't need to do that. He loves doing that, and I, drank that in growing up. I was fascinated by a history of military service in my family. Other kids were playing with Tonka trucks. I was, lining up soldiers. This carried through to studying military national security in college, and then I was privileged to work in the federal government in that arena. I left that over a number of reasons, but I was not very comfortable with the direction of the early Bush administration. Ended up in New York, and my grandfather's wise advice was understand the engine of the economy. And you see this resonate in the strong floor, no ceiling world in that we do have an engine, and it is the capitalist entrepreneurial economy. And so I've now spent 20 years of my career in that, but never straying far from also understanding the relationship between that policy, government, our representatives, and knowing that the partnership between those two things is what creates the strong floor and no ceiling for the country. Okay. One of your big central beliefs is that we haven't thought big enough this century, right? It has been, essentially George Bush after 9/11 told us, get back to the mall. Is this big enough? Are these ideas big enough for this moment? I think they are. I've been asked sometimes in this setting, where's the meat on the bones of strong floor, no ceiling? Well, there's a whole book, and it's full of policy ideas, and some of them are gigantic. I mean, we need to fix healthcare to shore up Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. We need to rethink education, particularly with the oncoming tsunami of AI, and these are not small things, and we need a framework for how to analyze how we should do that as a people. It shouldn't be piecemeal, it should be part of a vision. And I think ultimately, one of the most interesting questions we've asked voters in our polling, Paul, is whether or not they want to be asked and believe that if they were asked, they would rise to great things again. At key parts in the 250 years of our nation's history, people have been asked by leaders to rise to something, sometimes even kind of a handshake, right? A new deal, it's a deal, a contract with America, contract. What have we asked lately to rise to greatness? What have we asked people to think about? And I think if we said the bargain is we're going to make sure that strong floor is there, but there's no ceiling to what you can aspire to, that's a bargain worth making.
All right. You talk to a lot of Democratic lawmakers informally. What are they saying about this current moment where there's a lot of attention happening in New York City, where you had people from the Democratic Socialist wing of the party upending the establishment Democrats there? It's happened in other places. Where do you see this battle going right now? Where do they see it going?
Well, the first thing I'll say is in many ways, battle is healthy. Actually, one of the things I think is maybe wrong with the American political system is how uncompetitive lots of it is. So a healthy battle is good. Now, I am an avowed centrist, right? And my life between the federal government, business, nonprofit, et cetera, kind of situates me there. But the truth is that even if you look at the kind of big tent, as they call it, there is a lot more agreement than there is disagreement. And I think where there is disagreement, the voters actually believe in more similar things than you'd think. When we have asked progressive voters, for example, what they think of no ceiling, there's overwhelming support. And that's because even people who are frustrated at a rigged system, and rigged it is, still want to believe that they can get theirs, they can be in the middle class, they can leave their kids better off, and maybe even if they do something really special, they can have more. That's very American, no matter where in the political spectrum you fall. So I actually think, like, yes, of course, I think that there's always a hype cycle around these things. I mean, let's be real. A couple of the seats that you're talking about were already in Congressional Progressive Caucus hands, and so maybe there's not so big of a change. If you look around the rest of New York, you had a lot of centrists getting tapped, many. But nonetheless, I think that there is an opportunity for a tentpole message that has broad agreement.
All right, if they were to take the majority next time in January, give me 1 to 2 proposals that you would suggest to those leading Democrats that they should put among their first few bills.
There's a couple of big thrusts we have to take action on. It's one of the great missed opportunities that the old H.R. 1, the kind of big democracy bill, was not acted on. We are now seeing rampant anti-democratic actions and corruption. And so one of the things that the American people are legitimately angry about, and they sure ought to be, is corruption. And maybe the H.R. 1 ought to be a corruption and democracy bill. But simultaneously or on its heels, we have to attack affordability. And affordability for most people is coming down to healthcare, education bills, and power. And then food at the grocery store. And there's very concrete things we should be doing on those things, because I don't think we can ask people to care about democracy and corruption until we attack the cost of living and making sure people can put food on their plates. And actually, and I'll say one last thing, I have had the privilege of talking to many elected officials and candidates, and they will all remind us eloquently that when they talk to voters, the high-minded things are very far in the background to the day-to-day concerns of affordability and the things that let their families be healthy. So it's got to be a two-pronged attack. Both of those things people expect us to deliver on.
All right, there it is, everybody. Strong floor, no ceiling. Oliver Libby, thank you.
Thank you, Paul.
You're watching 535, and we'll be right back.
I work hard. My dad worked hard. That's where I got it from. What I take home is my future and my kids' future. And if I can invest in companies, they're going to reflect my principles, what I believe in. So why would those companies hire outside people to tell them to embrace principles I don't believe in? Congress must protect the financial future of Americans from the foreign-owned duopoly that answers to no one.
When your child gets sick, time is everything. Getting treatment sooner means more options and a real chance at getting better. Thankfully, almost every new treatment for cancer is available here. And because of strong American leadership, we get these new medicines first. But that can change fast. In other countries, many are told to wait or go without. If Washington copies other countries' policies, we'll have to wait too. It's time to tell Washington, keep America in the lead.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Rome. I've played many roles on TV and film, but today I want to speak to you as myself about a cause that's very dear to my heart. The Cancer Prevention and Treatment Fund provides free help to those who have cancer and those who wish to prevent it. They've also worked tirelessly on banning cancer-causing chemicals in our homes and neighborhoods. I want to thank them as a mom for protecting our families. Please donate today at the Cancer Prevention and Treatment Fund at stopcancerfund.com.
I enlisted as a medic to be there to help my patients, and after an injury, I found myself as a patient. I experienced post-traumatic seizures. Depression is a big one that comes along with it, PTSD. So I pursued my PhD in neuroscience and regenerative medicine. The coalition has helped fund my academic pursuits. They genuinely care about helping the vet in whatever way that they can. Through supporting the coalition, you're supporting some of the veterans that have the biggest needs.
Visit saluteheroes.org to learn more.
We are Lions International, one association of global volunteers, one foundation for humanitarian grants, shaping the future, one act of kindness at a time. We are on a mission to improve health and well-being, to strengthen communities, to serve a world in need. We are Lions International.
To learn more, visit lionsclubs.org.
I'm Brody Mullins. Welcome back to 535. Today we have David Tennant, founder and CEO.
Technically, I'm the president too, so it works.
Got everything, and answering the phones.
Yep.
Capital Connect. Tell us about Capital Connect.
Yeah, so I'm the founder. I was a former congressional staffer, worked on the Hill for about 3 years from 2019 to 2022, but ultimately realized a lot of the parts of Capitol Hill were relationship based, but there's no technology to bring all that together for staffers. So I wanted to create a platform that allowed staffers to find jobs, events, opportunities to just network, put it all in one place for staffers. So we've been doing it for about 4 years now.
So if I'm a staffer, how do I find Capital Connect?
You can go to our website, Capital Connect, like cnct.com, Capital like the building, and check us out. But we have newsletters, events, an app for staffers as well, so we've got it all.
So I sign up and I get a daily newsletter?
Yeah, so if you go to our subscribe page off the main homepage, you'll be able to get a daily newsletter. We actually just released a new one, so it's called TLDR, it's Too Long Didn't Read, where we summarize all the top DC political newsletters in your inbox every morning.
So a summary of the summaries?
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, basically.
And you have 9,000 staffers who are subscribers.
Yeah, so we've got over 9,000 subscribers, most of those being congressional staffers. So we probably have around 7,500, 8,000 congressional staffers.
But overall, there are roughly 10,000 staffers. So you're 70%?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And so each day you're telling them about social events, you're telling about job openings, you're talking about how many job openings are there per day? Must be dozens.
Yeah, there's usually probably like 10 a day, 50 a week between that and the private sector that are really relevant to a Hill staffer.
And so tell us a little bit more about one of your latest offerings, The Scoop.
Yeah, so when I was a congressional staffer, if I wanted to look for a new job on the Hill, there really weren't any opportunities for me to find real information about how that office runs or what that member is like, and every congressional office is so different. So I wanted to create something that was like a glass door, rate my professor, but for Congress, because it's just not available, where staffers can confidentially rate the offices they've worked in, give feedback on their bosses, on the members, to give a more transparent look at what Capitol Hill actually looks like for the offices you want to work in.
So Capitol Hill can be a tough place to work. Are you finding that there's a lot of bad members, or are there lots of good members, or what's your sort of survey of your survey?
I guess so far, we're a couple days into launch. There are more positive reviews than I was expecting, which makes me very happy. It makes me feel like all hope is not lost here. There's still a lot of room for growth, and of course there's going to be bad members, but one cool tidbit was Senator Tommy Tuberville is like the best rated member so far. It's like, college championship winning coach. Makes sense that he knows how to rally a team and build a good environment. So I thought that was very interesting.
Very cool, very cool, and also good to hear.
Yeah.
Let's also talk about your poll. You conducted a daily poll. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so we call it Capitol Pulse. It's a daily poll on politically topical issues where we ask congressional staffers inside this building how they feel about issues of the day. We're able to break it down every Friday by party, age, gender, whether they're a policy comm staff or a bunch of different demographics to give a peek inside what congressional staffers actually feel about these issues that are discussed.
And let's talk about the results of your latest poll. So one of the questions was, what issue do staffers see dominating the conversations leading into November? And what did you find out?
Yeah, basically it's the economy. If there's only one thing we can talk about, it's economy and affordability. Secondarily, national security, Iran. Democrats think the conversation is going to go a little bit around immigration. Republicans don't. But at the end of the day, affordability is kind of at the crux of all these issues because it's gas prices going back to Iran. And so everyday Americans are starting to feel the economic pressure that I don't think this administration expected to be a main talking point in the negative sense this term.
And among the surprising results was your results for immigration. What did you find there?
Democrats think it's going to be a talking point. About 20% of Democrats said they think this is what's going to dominate their conversations at home in August. 0% of Republican staffers answered that way, which is quite interesting, right? Like, obviously, immigration on both sides is the huge issue, and if obviously all these Republican members have Democrats in their district, I have a feeling they're going to be having something to say. But ultimately, I do think Iran and the economy will drive above that. But, you know, there's a lot to talk about with ICE these days.
I feel like we know this election is going to be about affordability in the economy, and that's what you found out. But I was sort of struck also that less than 2% care about healthcare, or think healthcare is going to be a big issue.
I think they care about it. I think it is a big issue. It's just like, Iran is just so overwhelming right now, what it's leading to on the just affordability side. It's hard, when you're saying what is going to dominate the conversation, it makes sense it's going to be those bigger issues, even if healthcare is still a problem.
Fascinating. So another question that you asked or data you found was the shift in what people think will be important issues. So what did you find on that topic?
Yeah, so at the beginning of the year, like first week of January, we asked staffers like what conversation is going to dominate this Congress. It was more split. There was a breakdown, but like national security, immigration was a reference there, but national security, a little bit of AI, not really, and then the economy. A lot of Republicans said the economy back then, it's grown. I'm assuming they thought they were going to have a lot of great conversations about the Trump economy's back, and it's really turned on them this year.
But you had in January 2026, 17% of people thought that the economy would be a big issue. Now we know it's enormous, and today it's 70%. So there's a huge increase. For sure. I thought I remembered earlier this year that the economy had always, that affordability had been the issue all along, but I guess not.
Well, I mean, I think like before it was, the Biden administration saying, hey guys, the economy's great, like whatever you're feeling at home isn't real, like listen to us, the numbers are up. And now I think like the Trump administration is imitating that behavior a little bit, and like we saw how that played out for Biden and Harris, so I think that's a good warning sign of what we want to talk about from a political messaging.
And then big drops in national security and healthcare. People earlier this year thought national security healthcare would be a big deal, and now they don't care.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anyone would have predicted Iran at the beginning of this year.
David Tennant, President, CEO, founder, and phone answerer of Capital Connect. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Brody.
I'm Brody Mullins. We're right back on 535.
You're watching 535, and we'll be right back.
When your child gets sick, time is everything. Getting treatment sooner means more options and a real chance at getting better. Thankfully, almost every new treatment for cancer is available here. And because of strong American leadership, we get these new medicines first. But that can change fast. In other countries, many are told to wait or go without. If Washington copies other countries' policies, we'll have to wait too. It's time to tell Washington, keep America in the lead.
You're watching 535.
This is 535.
You're watching 535.
You're watching 535.
You're watching 535.
We're live from the Capitol, and 535 starts right now.
He is what your show is called, The Decider.
It's Washington's hottest new show, and it has the Beltway buzzing.
Americans, they know BS when they see BS.
Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist Brody Mullins.
Is this era ending and is a new era beginning?
And veteran strategist Lisa Camuso Miller.
Have you ever had to tell a client no?
Talk to the biggest and most influential players.
We wanted $1 million. He said done.
Rewriting the rules of influence.
Business is going to be on the ballot.
Congress needs to do their job.
They become lapdogs rather than watchdogs.
The people who never talk.
That's such a good question.
Talk to them.
It was kind of fun, actually.
It's Washington's only show by and for insiders.
Welcome to the Deciders.
Watch weekly right here on 535.
Welcome back to 535. I'm Leanne Caldwell with Puck News. A new report is detailing how the Department of Homeland Security diverted staff and resources from FEMA coffers toward immigration enforcement. Joining me now to talk about that new report is Ranking Member on the House Subcommittee on Economic Development, Public Buildings, and Emergency Management, Congressman Greg Stanton, Democrat of Arizona. Hi, Congressman. Thanks for joining us.
Great to see you. That is the FEMA committee. We oversee FEMA, so that's why we're involved in this report.
And that is a really long title for a subcommittee name, but I got through it. Anyway, so this report that you released, it talks about how FEMA, which as we know, the Trump administration, when they first came in, wanted to dismantle FEMA. But what happened in part is they moved a lot of people to immigration enforcement, correct? Is that the finding?
That's exactly the finding. Look, it's completely disgraceful what this administration has done to FEMA. And when Americans read this report, they are going to be angry. Number one, they've cut 30% of the staff of FEMA. I mean, putting aside moving of employees, the decision of this administration to try to decimate FEMA. Originally, they wanted to get rid of it completely. It's unclear what their policy goal is now, but we do know 5,000 people that used to be employed by the government to help our fellow Americans in case of a natural disaster emergency, gone. And then hundreds of others with specialized training in logistics and planning have been moved over to work with ICE and CBP to organize and plan the logistics of ICE raids, believe it or not, and to stand up new detention centers, taking them away from their core duties of preparation for helping Americans in case of emergency. It makes us significantly less prepared if there is a natural disaster. When there's there's going to be a natural disaster, we are significantly less ready as a result of the actions taken by this administration.
What's the current status? Have they moved any of those people back? Have they tried to reformulate FEMA in any way?
Well, first off, thank goodness there were courageous whistleblowers willing to come forward and provide this information to us who help operate the committee. We're in the minority. We don't have subpoena power. So we are so fortunate that these many whistleblowers came forward to provide this information. As of the time the report was written, based on that information, no, hundreds of them were still detailed over to do the work of ICE and CBP. By the way, to top it all off, they don't even have an agreement for ICE or CBP or DHS to reimburse FEMA for the time of these employees, making us even less prepared for natural disasters. The disaster fund is very important. Occasionally we have to replenish it after there is a major disaster. And I should make note, this is illegal. We passed a law in the post-Katrina time period called the Post-Katrina Emergency Management Reform Act, which specifically said that FEMA employees are there to prepare for and to respond to natural disasters and should not be sent over to non-FEMA priorities. So this is an illegal act by this administration, in addition to making us significantly less ready. And this is not without cost. We saw what happened last year in July when there was that horrific flood in Texas. Hundreds of people, including so many young girls from Camp Mystic, died. And FEMA was nowhere to be seen. And because Kristi Noem had this ridiculous requirement that every contract over $100,000 had to be individually approved by her, they needed to ramp up call center efforts so that people that needed emergency help could call. They couldn't do it because she hadn't approved the contract. So people were waiting online for hours on end, or sometimes no call at all. No, at the worst moment of their life, they couldn't get through to talk about their immediate needs after an emergency. Totally unacceptable. And it's because this administration is trying to decimate FEMA, and I don't know why, if it's for a cost-cutting measure, who knows, but this needs to be changed. FEMA should be an independent agency. It should not be a part of the Department of Homeland Security. The FEMA administrator should directly report to the President of the United States, instead being buried underneath a terrible secretary like Kristi Noem, who has no business running an agency of this size and importance.
Well, it's actually really fascinating because last year, in 2025, leading into 2026, there were so many complaints about FEMA. You heard the North Carolina senators talk constantly about the 2024 hurricane, that there was still no relief from FEMA from their constituents, even though Donald Trump ran on that hurricane, saying that everyone would be made whole immediately. And they continued to ask FEMA and Kristi Noem what was going on, and they never got any answers. And so would you say that this specifically, the other than the decimation of firing so many FEMA employees and moving so many to immigration enforcement, is the reason why FEMA has been ineffective over the last year and a half?
Well, that is a core reason, but when you have the president and his administration denigrating the agency, suggesting that we would be better off without the agency and that states should handle disaster relief on their own, this is exactly what you get. And of course, the president is spreading rumors about sort of the politicization of response, that certain states, depending on whether red or blue, should get a different response. That's offensive to all Americans, whether you're Republican or Democrat. I believe, and I think most Americans believe, that there actually is no more core federal function than to help our fellow Americans at time of natural disaster. Americans we are loving people. We want to help our neighbors. We don't care if they're Republican or Democrat. if our fellow American citizen has gone through a terrible moment like a natural disaster, we expect the federal government to step up and step up very quickly. Instead, they put just incredibly unqualified people to be FEMA administrators, people that really don't care, and they perform very poorly after the Texas floods. And that's why we actually need to go in the exact opposite direction. Instead of trying to decimate and undermine FEMA, let's actually empower it. Let's make it a cabinet level official, the administrator of the agency, and let's make sure they have the support and resources and the employees that they need to respond in case of emergency. We're in hurricane season right now.
Yeah.
This could happen today somewhere in America. And I'm sad to say that we are very unprepared to respond in the appropriate way because of these decisions this administration. FEMA employees, those that are trained at the highest levels on logistics and planning, they're so good at it to stand up emergency operations centers after an emergency. And they're taking those skill sets and using it for ice raids, to plan the logistic ice raids. That should be offensive to every American.
What is the response you've gotten from your Republican colleagues on the committee?
Well, look, in terms of the report itself, I don't think they're going to take any action specifically on the report. Obviously, unfortunately, with regard to this administration, the Republicans in Congress are still unwilling to stand up the administration. However, there is some good news. There is a bipartisan bill, the FEMA Act, which would do one of the major recommendations from this report, which is the independence of FEMA. And that does have the support of the chair of the Transportation Infrastructure Committee, as well as the ranking member, that's Sam Graves and Rick Larson. They're the co-leads, along with myself and other Republicans who are on this committee that you talked about earlier. So there is a bipartisan bill right now to do the right thing for FEMA, and that's a very positive development. It is moving forward in the process.
Have you gotten any response from OMB Director Russ Vought about moving, these funds to pay for employees to do FEMA work? They're obviously redirecting funds basically because they're redirecting employees. Has the administration, any administration official, I guess at DHS, at OMB, or the White House responded?
I mean, I think this is the first interview I've ever done with the suggestion that Russ Vought would follow the law instead of trying to overcome whatever Congress has done, ignoring Congress. I mean, Russ Vaught's been a complete disaster at OMB for doing exactly that. We pass laws, including appropriations bills, and then they take it not as it's a law, but just as an advisory opinion, I guess, and Republicans in Congress have not done anything to stand up for themselves. Now, I will say, the DHS has given a blanket rejection of the report. They have not rejected the specifics, because if you read the report, these whistleblowers came correct, if you will. These whistleblowers didn't just give verbal testimony, they came with evidence of all of this happening. So it's a pretty overwhelmingly well-researched report with the backup evidence to show that what they're claiming is happening to FEMA is exactly what is happening in FEMA. And there's also the issue of what's called the Anti-Deficiency Act. When you're lending out employees for non-FEMA purpose and they're not being reimbursed, that's also illegal because of the anti-deficiency law.
Yeah. What comes next on this issue, in this report?
Yeah, I think we're going to keep moving forward. Number one, to get that disaster relief fund reimbursed. So we're going to be as loud as we possibly can about that. Democrats are going to win the majority, and so we'll be in a position then to actually issue subpoenas to get the evidence. They can't hide from it anymore. And in a bipartisan way, we're going to keep moving forward with the FEMA Act so that we can get a FEMA administrator out from underneath Kristi Noem, or in this case, Mark Wayne Mullen, be an independent agency that's a cabinet level official reporting directly to the President of the United States. I would suggest that the American people would think that disaster planning and disaster recovery is as important as anything else the federal government does for the people of this country, and would want that to be a cabinet level official.
Is there bipartisan support for that?
Yes, there is. That's the bill. That's the FEMA Act.
Okay.
So Sam Graves, chair of the committee, who I respect greatly, is one of the lead sponsors of that bill.
Yeah. How did you become head of this committee? Arizona obviously has disasters, but it's not a state that I would think that would have a lot of FEMA engagement.
Okay, you would be incorrect. And here's this: forest fires. You've seen them. Look, climate change is real. One of the main states hit hard by it is Arizona. Extreme heat, drought, and forest fires. Now, I believe that extreme heat, which is having such major health ramifications on Americans, I'm the co-chair of the bipartisan heat caucus with Mike Lawler, believe it or not. But one of the things that I believe is that heat, which is a slow-moving natural disaster, but a natural disaster nonetheless, should be covered by FEMA as well to help cities, so people that are experiencing homelessness, make sure that they have a safe place, an air-conditioned place to rest their head at night so that their bodies can recover. And otherwise, it's really deadly in Arizona. And forest fires, which we're seeing an increase of, can be incredibly deadly as well. But you said, how do I get to be chair of this committee? I'm an active member. I'm an active member of Transportation Infrastructure Committee. I'm a recovering mayor. Back when I was mayor of Phoenix, Arizona, I was known for my advocacy of transportation and infrastructure. We actually put on the ballot, when I was running for re-election, the largest transportation infrastructure investment in city history, which is kind of not the smartest thing to do, to put a tax increase on your own re-election ballot. But when you believe in something, you got to do it. And then we did it. I won the election, and we won that ballot referral. And we now have in Phoenix an incredibly well-run bus system, a light rail system, streetcar system as well. And I've kind of dedicated my career to improving public transportation. I'm a working class kid. My dad sold shoes at JCPenney for 35 years, and he took the Phoenix City bus every day to and from work. So I'm a passionate advocate for public transportation because I know what a difference it can make in families like mine, working class families around the country.
Yeah. In Arizona this week, there was obviously primaries. An election denier won the Republican primary to be Secretary of State. What is your reaction to that? Do they have any chance of winning?
Well, it's an election, and the voters will make that decision. But Adrian Fontes, who is our current Secretary of State, I think is doing a really good job, and I think he has gotten the confidence of the people of Arizona. So I don't think Alexander Culloden is the gentleman's name. I don't think he will be successful in his effort to be Secretary of State in Arizona. I think Arizonans have rejected election deniers over and over and over again. It's the reason why Kari Lake is trying to be ambassador to Jamaica instead of governor of Arizona. Thank God. And over and over and over again, we have rejected it. And it's why I think Katie Hobbs, the governor, is going to win re-election again. Andy Biggs is going to run, I'm sure, an energetic campaign for himself. But the fact is, he was one of the leading election deniers here in Congress, and that was a terrible decision then. It's going to come back to haunt him in this upcoming election.
He's trying to moderate in this election. Do you believe it?
Why, he can try, but his record is his record. I mean, he's one of the most extreme members of Congress. He used to brag about that. I mean, whenever I look up on the board and there is a vote that is 430 votes to 5, he's always one of the 5. He is self-selected to be one of the most extreme members of Congress. He was a cheerleader for the efforts to try to overturn the election in 2000, and he can't escape that past. He's not going to be able to change his image in that regard. He's known as a MAGA warrior in that regard. I don't think he's going to be able to change that. Katie Hobbs has been a very strong bipartisan leader of our state, so I expect that she's going to have a big win on Election Day this year.
Yeah. The D-Trip got involved in a race, not in your district, obviously, but in another district in Arizona. Their candidate ended up losing. We found out last night that the challenger won. Should the Democratic Party get engaged in Democratic primaries?
Look, I actually think this is much ado, if you will. Amish Shah, who I worked with for many years. When I was mayor, he was a state legislator. He's a well-liked guy. And he's going to win that general election. DCCC and many other groups are going to pour in a ton of money. We will not be outspent in that race. We had 2 strong candidates. We had really a lot of strong candidates in that race. Amish has won that primary. I'm going to personally support him as much as I can, do everything I can. I'm kind of the next door neighbor district to help him win. And he's going to have the support of local folks and nationally, because that's one of the most important districts for Democrats. As we will win the majority, that's going to be one of the most important districts to win. So DCCC thought that Marlene Woods had a better chance in the primary, but Amish Shah still has a great chance of winning that primary, and I believe is going to win that. Not the primary, the general election. Amish Shah is going to win that general election. He's going to have the support of everyone because it is such a critical race. He's going to have the resources to win. to support the win. He's a strong candidate, and he's going to win that race.
As of this moment, you have one more vote before August recess. What do you plan to do August recess?
Town halls, meet with my constituents. Obviously on the campaign side, my district is actually a Republican majority district by 10,000 votes. I've been able to win it each time that I have run. I've been so fortunate to build a strong relationship of trust with the people that I represent, but you can never take it for granted. And so I will never be outworked, and I'm going to be out there working hard on winning the trust of both Democrats, independents, moderate Republicans to build the coalition that I need to be successful in this race. So no rest for the weary. We take a trip after the November election, not during this time period. And I'm also very active with the New Dems. I'm the head of the New Dem Action Fund, which is the political arm of the New Dems. We're going to be delivering the majority. Oh yeah, we're going to be winning. We win in the toughest seats.
Yeah.
New Dems are more moderate in style, but they are warriors on the battlefield of winning this majority. We are more committed than anyone to winning this majority and getting Hakeem Jeffries to be Speaker of the House. Our candidates win in the Trump districts. That's what delivers majorities. I know we're a broad tent, big tent party, and people have lots of different political perspectives, and I don't care what your political perspective is. We need our New Dems to win the majority so that people of all different political persuasions can become committee chairs, et cetera. We bring the majority to Congress, and I'm going to be working heavily on that, working with candidates around the country as well. So a very busy August work period. Not August recess, August work period.
I know. Us old people who've been around here for a long time when August recess wasn't such a bad word. What are the one or two things that you hear most often from your constituents?
I mean, look, it's this issue of affordability. We say it over and over and over again. Maybe we shouldn't use the word affordability. It's just stuff's getting more expensive. But there's a direct line between the actions taken by this administration without any resistance from the majority Republicans in Congress. This war in Iran, it's driving up gas prices. Everybody's face. Our allies are dealing with it around the country. It's making us less safe as a country. That's a direct line between this president's very poor decision to enter this war of choice. Healthcare. I mean, there's a direct line between their decision to get rid of the tax credits for the Affordable Care Act. That's driving up healthcare costs for millions and millions and millions in America. These tariffs, which are totally illegal, this president's doing it without any resistance from the Republicans in Congress, is driving up costs of everyday goods. This is the #1 issue, and there'll be no question in the public's mind who's responsible for increasing costs in America. That is the unifying issue for Democrats and why we're going to win across the board.
Great. Congressman Greg Stanton,
so
thank you so much for joining us today. And thank you for watching. If it's important to the 535 members up here on Capitol Hill, it's important to us. On behalf of all of us, thank you to the people who work on Capitol Hill, those of you who are watching, for joining the show, for posting clips, and mostly for joining us to talk deeply about policy, the thing that we care about most up here at 535. And thank you to our 100 plus members who have helped us launch. And now I ask for unanimous consent on a motion to adjourn until 11 a.m. Tuesday, September 1st, 2026. Hearing no objections, so ordered. We'll see you after recess.